also enforcing social distancing. And I think that's a conversation we have to have. But I think I'm against us. I understand Easter. And also, I'm very concerned about people being able to self-distance in this situation. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll share that with Dr. Randolph.
Yeah, thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Sawyer. Next in the queue, Commissioner Mick Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, Director Haushalter. Thank you for being with us this afternoon, and thank you for your report. I had two quick questions for you, or maybe not so quick, but two questions. The first is on the testing. Can you give us a sense of the timeline between when these tests are being taken and the time when the public is getting that report back?
So there is some variability based by laboratory, but typically when a test is taken, it may take 3 or 4 days before the individual gets the report from the provider. And it may be another couple days before the health department receives that information. And the reason I'm pointing that out is one of the critical strategies to reducing spread is to assure that people are isolated and quarantined in a very timely manner. So we're focusing our efforts on point of testing instruction so that people get isolated quickly and then get to quarantine quickly. There are some newer tests on the market that allow for just-in-time testing, somewhat like the flu, but those are not widely available and they're not available in Shelby County currently.
So right now, it sounds like it would be a total of something like 6 days that we're looking at between when the test is done and when we're releasing that in the reports.
Correct. And sometimes it's up to 10 days. That's why generally the information that we send out, we send a little bit more detail to the commissioners. There are several graphs in there, and one of the graphs you'll see tells the increase in cases by the date that we received the report, but the other is the date of onset of illness, and that's the most important one to look at.
And then second question is on the forecasting or the modeling. We had the very alarming headline last week from Dr. Randolph about the potential for 20,000 fatalities. And then overnight or this morning, we heard about the updated model from the IHME group that was forecasting fewer than 600 fatalities statewide. Is how often are we reviewing the models that we are using here locally, and how do you account for such a wide variation in those projections?
And that's a great question. I've been asked this question by others as well. When Dr. Randolph quoted the 20,000, I actually don't know where he derived that number from. It's not something that I've been reporting or that TDH has been reporting. And when I heard him, my assessment was he was talking more broadly, not necessarily just Shelby County specific. But I would also say on the models, there is significant variability. You'll have generally 3 or 4 scenarios for each model. That's the best case scenario to the worst case scenario, and there'll be significant differences in when the peak is expected and the number of people expected to be impacted by the peak. What I've asked people to do is really focus on the prevention strategies, because we know those strategies work. And if we focus on the prevention strategies, our peak will be lower and we'll experience less deaths locally, and that's proven, and so that's the area we want to focus. As far as the team that's working on the predictive analytics, it's actually a very small team. That's members of our epidemiological team here at the health department. Dr. Jane, who's an ID doc at Baptist, as well as representatives from UT and University of Memphis, and someone from Memphis Fire, who's one of their data analysts. We're working closely with the state health department, but at the current time, what we're looking at is what is the best of the 3 models I mentioned earlier. the Vanderbilt model, as well as the University of Pennsylvania model, as well as the Washington model. Each of them have their strengths and weaknesses, and each one of them is going to have a different prediction. What we're trying to make sure locally is that we use good inputs from Shelby County. So example is the University of Pennsylvania model does not consider demographics of your population. We have to be able to look at demographics and the percentage of our population that's aged. So I know that's not a black and white answer. I do believe that the group that's working on the local analytics is the right group locally, and that they have accurate inputs for that. And I would say that what is released later this week is what I'm going to rely on for our planning purposes. The state model shows our peak at April 19th. That's literally just a week and a half away. At the current time, we don't anticipate our peak would be that soon. It's going to be a little bit further out. We're also looking at ways to keep measuring social distancing. Current data shows that we're reaching about 45 to 50% social distancing, and we need to get that over 60%. But there's also variability in those models as well. So I apologize that it's not as black and white as any of us would like it to be. And so it's choosing from the various models to come up with the best prediction we can for Shelby County.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright, for your questions. Thank you, Dr. Househalter. We have one more commissioner, and then commissioners, we need to move to Director Griffin. Commissioner Reginald Milton.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Director, I know we've been talking quite a bit offline. One of the things I'm noticing is that we're starting to see an uptick in the number of prostitutes and homeless people. And I believe they're going to be a major vessel in the transmission. I know we're focusing on trying to do better PSAs, better community outreach to the community, but especially in the urban area, what are you looking at doing?
So that's a great question, and I am going to actually ask for help from the commissioners. We do need to do better outreach and street outreach, just like we do with the opioid epidemic. If you have suggestions for us or recommendations of locations or venues of how we can reach out to people, please let me know that. We have been partnering with others around those who are experiencing homelessness. But as you know, those who seek shelter in a shelter are not the same individuals who may be on the street as a result of substance use, or those who are engaging in prostitution. And I've been very concerned about this population. So any input, please offline that to me, and we'll be happy to work with our team members to try to do more outreach.
I will be reaching out to you. And again, wonderful work. Thank you for all you're doing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Commissioner Milton, really good question. Director Househalter, again, on behalf of the commissioners, thank you for all you're doing. Thank you to your team. Thank you to Dr. Randolph. Again, we're here to support you in any way we can, and thank you for your report today.
Thank you.
Next, commissioners, if I could ask Dorcas Griffin Young, our Director of Community Services, to give us a report. Dorcas is on the front lines of many, many things in our community as it relates to our constituents. This pandemic is not any different. She is she and her staff at Community Services is receiving questions about utility assistance, about food, and mortgage assistance, rent assistance. So Director Griffin, can you please give the commissioners an update? And also specifically, if you could help us today, point us to the right services so we can help our constituents.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dorcas Griffin, Director of Community Services. Sorry about the lighting, still learning lighting in all of these new venues. But as Commissioner Billingsley, Chairman Billingsley mentioned, the Division of Community Services is continuing to serve people during this time. We have adjusted our service model, of course, because of some of the requirements around social distancing and the things that we got to do to keep people safe, but we are still full force providing services. A couple of things that I want to mention to everyone just around services. One is around housing. There seem to be several questions around housing. As Dr. Haushalter mentioned, I am a part of the joint COVID task force, along with Dr. Haushalter and several of our other directors here in the county. And the particular joint task force committee that I am working on is around housing, mass care. And so we have been very focused on making sure that we have options for people who are experiencing homelessness to be placed not just in shelters, but also in hotels during this time to make sure as many people as we can, we get them off the street and we safely get them temporarily housed until we can get them into a permanent situation. We also are working to make sure that those folks who have to be isolated and quarantined by the health department and don't have anywhere to go, that we have housing for them as well. Another thing that I wanted to mention is just around payment of bills. We continue to pay and help people with their utilities and with their rent and mortgage assistance. While we have a slight uptick in people accessing some of these services, it probably is not as high as it will get. As we know, there have been moratoriums placed on the disconnection of our utilities, and many of the landlords and some of our mortgage companies have given people an extended amount of time to pay those bills, but those bills will come and they will still need to be paid. And so we are still here working with people to get utilities paid and get rent and mortgage paid. One service that I want to point you all to is the Emergency Cash Assistance Program through the Tennessee Department of Human Services. For families or people who have been laid off since March 9th or maybe lost 50% of their income, they are eligible for emergency cash assistance from DHS. There's an online application process that people can go through, and they can receive up to 2 months of help just in the form of cash assistance. For example, you can get $1,000 for 2 months for a household of 5 or more folks. And this has no impact on your unemployment. It doesn't have any impact on any other benefits that you might receive during this time. And so I really want to encourage folks to look at that. The final thing that I want to mention about in terms of a service that's highly accessed is food. There are so many people that are during this time that need help with food assistance. And we have worked very closely with the Mid-South Food Bank, who are doing the work of just real ministry out in the streets right now. And they are having food pantries set up, mobile food pantries set up all across the community each and every day. I encourage you to check out their website because you can find a feeding, a giveaway somewhere in the community that you can direct your families and individuals to. The final thing I want to just say is that we are still working to identify gaps and needs for folks around this time. And the truth is, y'all, we are dealing with phase 1 of this crisis. Dr. Haushalter and her team are doing an amazing job, guide us through the medical and clinical implications of this virus. I really believe that in phase 2, after the peak has happened and after we've flattened the curve, there are still going to be some serious economic consequences, not only for our individuals, but for our businesses. And so we need to be really thoughtful about the plan for that. And I'm looking forward to working with the County Commission on making sure that our families and our folks are taken care of during this entire period. If you have any questions, I
So sorry, I muted myself. Uh, Good to see you, Director Griffin. Are there any commissioners that have a question for Director Young? She did a great job explaining where the resources are.
Mr. Chair, real quickly,
Commissioner Milton, you have the floor.
very quickly, Director, do we have any of that in a poster format that we can put out at places? That's really how you're going to reach a lot of these people.
So we don't have posters, but we can get those printed. We do have some flyers that have information. We've put out a newsletter, but I do think we should get some posters. We probably can get some printed this week and distribute that to you all.
And please, yeah, get it to us. And, I have several sites that I think I can get out into the community area that I think they'll be very interested in. Thank you very much for your hard work. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Sawyer.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be very quick. I had the same question. I actually just emailed you and Dr. Haushalter. Thank you for the work that you're doing always. But I did just make a request of the similar thing. I don't know how we can either require it, but as a start, could we do some kind of printing of posters that could go at hotels specifically? Because when you're talking about sex work, I know in my district, there's a large number of hourly hotels that are prominent in the sex work community. And so I think if those hotels were either required to post some kind of COVID-19 information, if that's something that we have to codify, I'm pretty sure that we would be up for that. So if you could look into that this week and let us know what we need to do by Thursday, so that if we do need to do something, we could get it in committee for next week. If not, can we move on? That's another request to you and the administration, that we get signage up at the hotels, even if it's just like, how we go in the bathroom at a store and it's like, here's, wash your hands before you return to eat, something like that about like COVID and how, wear a mask. You got it. And then I would just also like to send a friendly reminder to everyone that when we say prostitution, we are only stigmatizing the women. So let's try to say sex work. Thank you very much. Take care.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Sawyer. Director Griffin, I know we approved some funding for public awareness campaigns. So again, to Commissioner Milton's comments and Commissioner Sawyer's, can you just pass along to our partners that we want to have appropriate coverage to all constituents, including the ones that Commissioner Sawyer and Commissioner Milton mentioned?
Absolutely. I know that funding was, the health department will be leading the charge, but Dr. Haushalter and I work really well together. And so we will definitely talk through some ways to make this happen. So
Very
thank you.
good. Well, Director, keep up the good work. We won't keep you any more today. Thank you so much, and we appreciate all you're doing. Very good, Commissioners. We've had a report from Dr. Haushalter and Director Griffin. We will now go to our regular agenda, and we'll go to item number 12.
Okay, this is an ordinance on third reading. So after we read this into the record and move it with a mover and a seconder, I'm going to also need to read a summary. Item 12 comes from the General Government Committee, which is chaired by Chairman Billingsley. Item 12 is an ordinance third reading, ordinance setting guidelines that the county's Human Resources Department will consider when investigating alleged employee and/or board member violations of the charter residency requirements, sponsored by Commissioner Vandy Turner Jr.
Ms. Rankin, thank you so much. I need someone to move item number 12, and I need a second, please.
So moved. Lowry.
Second,
Moved
Turner
by
Bradford.
Lowry, seconded by Turner.
May I read the summary now?
Please read the summary.
Thank you, sir. Okay. The summary for item 12 is as follows. Recent controversy has brought the attention of the public and the Board of Commissioners to the issue of residency requirements for county employees. The Charter for Shelby County Government requires residency within Shelby County for all county employees hired after September 1st, 1986, members of county boards, authorities, and commissions, elected officials, and employees and officials of the County Board of Education. These charter provisions that apply do not adequately define residency for these purposes, nor do they set forth in sufficient detail how residency provisions are to be enforced or the procedures, evidentiary standards, and burdens of proof associated with such enforcement for county employees or a member of a county board, authority, or commission board member. The County Commission determined it to be in the public's best interest to set forth the guidelines the Commission will consider when it receives, reviews, and deliberates on a report of investigation from the county attorney as to the residency of an elected county official by adopting resolution number 27 on August 18th, 2014. The County Commission now desires to establish the guidelines that the Human Resources Department will consider when it receives an allegation that a county employee or board member has violated the charter residency requirement. Upon the adoption and effective date of this ordinance, the Human Resources Department will consider the following guidelines as summarized in any investigation upon receiving credible information that a county employee has violated the charter's residency requirement. The pertinent provisions are as follows. Section 2A, residency defined. Section 2B, change of residence. Section 2C, residency determining factors. Section 2D, proof of residency. Section 3, annual certification of residency. This ordinance requires a majority of the body for passage, majority vote.
Thank you, Ms. Rankin. We also have someone who sent in a public comment. Could I please ask the staff to read that public comment, as long as it's appropriate?
Rosalind.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Rosalind.
Okay. The comment is from Mr. Earl Laughlin, and it says, I would like to submit a question about the agenda item concerning proof of residency changes. Is it true that the residence should be livable, meaning utilities present, furniture, and personal items present, but the proposed changes would place requirements upon non-employee family members of county employees? Those same employee family members, which the county government in many cases carved out of county insurance plans just a few years ago. This change would, in effect, limit the movement and actions of those who are not employed by Shelby County. There are those who have multiple residencies and make use of them in whatever way they see fit, and this freedom should not be limited by this ordinance. As long as the residence is available and sufficient for the employee in question, the presence of other family members is irrelevant. And it says the following text should be removed. Quote, the place where the person's spouse or custodial child or children is or resides. There is also a reference to voting in the ordinance, but voter registration is not listed as one of the documents which can be used for verification of residence. Even the state of Tennessee uses voter registration as the main impetus for an establishment of residency. This should be added under Section 2, Article D, as accepted proof of residency.
Thank you. Thank you for that public comment. Again, this item has been moved and seconded. I do not see anyone in the queue that wants to speak to item number 12. Thus, let's prepare the screens for voting for item number 12. Third reading.
Commissioner Turner,
Aye.
Morrison,
No.
Sawyer,
Aye.
Whaley,
Aye.
Wright,
Abstain.
Milton,
Aye.
Brooks, Bradford,
Yes.
Ford,
Aye.
Mills,
Aye.
Lowry,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Chairman Billingsley.
Aye.
We have aye votes from Commissioners Turner, Sawyer, Whaley, Milton, Bradford, Ford, Mills, Lowry, Jones, and Chairman Billingsley. Commissioner Morrison has voted no, and Commissioner Wright has abstained. We have 10 ayes, 1 no, and 1 abstain.
That item passes. Item number 13.
Oh, Lord. Y'all give me one moment. My printout did not include 13, so let me pull it up from
No problem.
Ari.
No problem. We're doing pretty good, commissioners.
Okay. Can you all see me?
We can.
It doesn't matter if you can't. Okay. Item 13 comes from the Land Use Planning, Transportation, and Codes Committee, which is chaired by Commissioner Ford. Item 13 is a resolution pursuant to Chapter 9.6 of the Unified Development Code of the County of Shelby and the City of Memphis, Tennessee, granting a planned development for land located plus or minus 2,612 feet to the center line of homes and Quinn Roads, known as case number PD 19-23CO, sponsored by Commissioner Edmund Ford Jr. This item was referred back to Commission in March 9th, 2020 Commission meeting.
Commissioner Ford, can I please get a report?
Chairman, this item was referred back to commission in the March 9th, 2020 meeting. I believe Commissioner Bradford wanted to speak on this, but if he doesn't mind me doing this, I believe that this item is supposed to be taken off the agenda because of the resolution that passed where we decided to take these land use items off due to COVID. If Commissioner Bradford wanted to discuss that regarding the resolution we passed, I yield to him.
Very good. You're, Commissioner Bradford, or Commissioner Ford, you're correct, but let me defer to Commissioner Bradford.
Commissioner Ford is exactly right. And I believe we also reached out to Mr. Whitehead as well. And he said that he had told the applicant that this had also had been delayed. So the resolution we passed, I think 2 weeks ago, was to delay all land use cases for a month, just due to COVID and having people trying to want to meet and speak on this. Obviously, we didn't want any groups in favor or against this item. So I believe we had postponed this till I'd have to go back and look at the meeting to know when we would, it was 30 days from whatever I guess the last meeting was. So another 2 weeks probably.
Okay. Okay, commissioners, we will not hear this item today. So Ms. Rankin, are we withdrawing this in terms of parliamentary procedure, or how it shouldn't have been on the agenda. So are we just withdrawing it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Item number 13 is withdrawn. I thank you, commissioners. Item number 14.
Okay.
And to the public, we are still trying to get our county website video back up. I know I've had some people contact me about the video and audio from our county website. We're working on that. My apologies. Ms. Rankin.
Yes, sir. Item 14 comes from the Budget and Finance Committee, which is chaired by Commissioner Jones. Item 14 is a resolution to amend the FY 2020 General Operating Budget and Position Control Budget to reduce personnel and operating and maintenance appropriations, as well as establish a moratorium until June 30th, 2020 on all expenditures except for expenditures involving essential functions. This item requires the reduction of FY 2020 general fund budget appropriations related to personnel and operating and maintenance expenditures in an amount of $10,014,566. Sponsored by Chair Pro Tempore Eddie S. Jones Jr. and Chairman Mark Billingsley. This item was sent down without recommendation in April 1st, 2020 committee meeting.
Can I get a mover and seconder on item number 14?
So moved, Morrison.
Morrison moved it. Is it seconded?
Second, Bradford.
By Bradford. Commissioner Jones, can I get a report on item number 14?
That item came before committee and was sent down with no recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. So again, it's been moved, it's been seconded. It's now on the floor. Commissioners, if you want to talk about this item, preferably put a note into the chat and or appear by video secondary. Is there anyone who wants to speak to this item? I've got a question from who wants to speak, Commissioner Sawyer. Commissioner Sawyer, I can't hear you.
Hi, okay. So I have a few, this is item 15.
Item 14 on the budget and position control.
Right, okay. So I have a few questions about this. Is CAO Gillum or the mayor available?
They are.
Okay, my questions are regarding any cuts to positions. I'm not sure if Trustee Newman is on the line, but I would like to hear how this will impact our current personnel, these cuts, because there are cuts to personnel budget. Will we have to make layoffs? And if not, what assurances give to these departments that they won't have to cut staff if this were to pass? Thank you.
Commissioner Sawyer, thank you for your question. I'm gonna go to the administration next. Director Gilliam, would you like to respond to Commissioner Sawyer's question about, and also our CFO Crosby is on the line. Can you please address Commissioner Sawyer's question as it relates to if this item 14 would cut positions in the current 90 days? Director Gilliam. Can you hear me,
Yes.
Director Gilliam? Go ahead,
can you
please.
hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Dewan Gillum, CAO for Shelby County. I will say that based on all the conversations that I've had, that we're hoping that we can make these cuts without it involving any layoffs or the furlough of any Shelby County employees.
Thank you, Director Gilliam. And also, Ms. Crosby, do you want to confirm that or do you have a comment?
Certainly, that was the intent, was to not lay off any Shelby County employees. In the month of March alone, we added 59 new employees in Shelby County, and there were 12 salary adjustments or promotions that went through in March. So there have been changes to the staffing levels that are not necessarily reflected in the historical underspending on which these budget reductions were reduced. But we have been in touch with every single elected official, except for 3 of the smaller ones, about how these reductions could be effectuated in their budgets. For some departments, there are positions that have excess budget capacity within those positions. For others, there are vacancies. For some, it is the case that the reductions we may need to work with those departments so that they don't have to lay off staff due to these reductions.
Okay. Director Gilliam and Ms. Crosby, thank you for your response. Commissioner Sawyer, did you have something else, Mr. Gilliam?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that Trustee Newman sees it the same way. And then also my other question on the record, if I may, Chairman, is for CAO. Thank you, CFO Crosby. But my other question is regarding our request last week. I did hear CFO Crosby say that she talked to everyone except for 3 of the smaller ones. We have been getting slammed, and I shared this with the CAO, I shared this with the mayor. I'm sure pretty much every commissioner can attest to this. Our colleagues are not happy about this. I understand that budget cuts are no one's cup of tea, no one's favorite drink. But I also think that a part of this still stems from the communication process. And I just want to know where we've progressed between last Wednesday and today. I'm really disappointed to hear the media taking a stance that our majority women elected counterparts were overpaid and underqualified. And just like to take a moment to make sure that as a woman, I stand for these leaders who were elected because they are intelligent, because they have earned their position, and because they are leaders. And that shouldn't have anything to do with the budget. And it's a shame that it went there. Now that I'm off my soapbox, Trustee Newman, can you please tell us if you have the same understanding on the personnel cuts? CAO Gillum, can you give us on where you are with the conversations? Thank you.
Commissioner Sawyer, thank you for your questions. Ms. Newman, you can make your statement.
I was requested to answer this question, and we did meet with CFO Crosby last Thursday. We explained our current budget, which is that without laying anybody off and after meeting our salary restriction of about $400,000, we have $23,516 left in our personnel line. It's not a position, it's just $23,516. The proposed personnel line cut from the administration was $279,131. I misspoke last Wednesday at the commission. 279,000, maybe 5 or 6 folks for a year, but it's more like 20 to 25 people for a quarter. And that's 20 to 25 people, which is a third of the trustee staff. That's my response.
Thank you, Trustee Newman. Anybody from the administration respond? Are we good? Okay, very good. Ms. Crosby, did you have something to say?
One note that we have made is that this is not a cut to be done in just one quarter. If there has been underspending that has been achieved already in the first 9 months of this fiscal year, this reduction would also apply. It applies to the full fiscal year. So it would include
Very
that
good.
underspending that has already occurred.
Very good. Thank you, Trustee. Thank you, CFO. I'm going to go into the queue. Let's try to limit our time, commissioners, to about 3 minutes apiece, and I'll be timing it. And I've done that all along. I just hadn't said it. Commissioner Milton. Commissioner Milton, you have the floor.
Thank you. Do we have the county attorney available, Mr. Chair?
We do. We have the county attorney available. Megan or Ms. Iverson, whoever wants to come on board. To the county attorney's office, if they could come online, please. Let's give them just a second. Commissioner Milton, I think it's a good question to ask county attorney. I don't know what you're going to ask him, but they did render an opinion that we just received a little while ago that I think the commissioners just got by email. Commissioners, you may want to check your email box about that. But again, we need someone from the county attorney's office online, please.
Megan says she's trying to unmute.
I understand. How are you today, Commissioner Milton?
Taking it day by day. I hope everyone else is doing well. And we do have to throw up a prayer for Commissioner Brooks. He's not feeling well. He's not feeling well.
Yes. Yeah.
He's a trooper. He'll pull through.
Oh, yes, he will.
Mr. Chair, is there anyone else in the queue?
Megan? Yes,
Okay,
Megan,
here's-
can you check your mic, Megan?
Commissioner, would you put your question out there, and then I'm reserving your time. But would you go ahead and put your question out there, please, to the
basically-
county attorney?
Yes, sir. Basically, we're being asked to vote on this, and I was concerned since we're changing basically we're changing the budget. Is this really a resolution, or is it really an ordinance? If it's an ordinance, then we'll have to have 3 readings on this, will we not?
Okay, that's a good question to our county attorney. I see a square there for our county attorney. Let's see if we can hear her. Ms. Smith? Here we go. We need
Oh.
some. Ms. Smith, can you hear us? Okay, Ms. Smith, can you call in? Would you repeat your question, Commissioner Milton, and I'll get her to email us back an answer, or she can call us and let us know, and we will get her online here in a few minutes. But will you repeat your question, Commissioner Milton?
Of course, Mr. Chair. Just basically, I would like clarity on if this is really an ordinance or is it a resolution?
Okay.
First time we've had a quiet lawyer. That's good.
Yeah, I agree. We cannot hear her, but we will get her. Commissioner, thank you for your patience. We will get Ms. Smith on the line here just shortly. Any other questions, Commissioner Milton?
No, sir. I think that if we can get that one answered, I think it would help a great deal. Thank you. Ms. Smith?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me now?
We'll try this, but I don't think it's going to work. Go right ahead.
The answer to Commissioner Milton's question is
Okay, and then Commissioner Milton, I've just been told by county attorney, it is most certainly a resolution. Also, commissioners, I received communication from Marcy Ingram, our attorney, who also confirms it is a resolution.
It is a resolution. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it.
No, thank you very much. And very good question. I go to Commissioner Wright regarding item number 14. Commissioner Wright, you have the floor. 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering, I know this is a very important measure for us to deal with the fallout from the pandemic and the lack of revenue that is coming in. We might have missed some other commissioners, Mr. Chairman.
Go right ahead. You've got the floor. I'll
I'm
go
sorry.
right back. I'm sorry.
I'm just wondering because it does sound like some of the other electeds are at least willing to work with the administration. Is there any more flexibility, or is there flexibility in this resolution, or could we add any additional flexibility so that those discussions could continue between the administration and the other elected officers?
If I could go to Director Gilliam and our CFO. Mr. Gilliam, do you want to address Commissioner Wright's question? And then I've got some other commissioners that are in the queue as well.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I believe that CFO can attest to the fact that we have gone out of our way to work with the elected officials over the last few days to see if we could kind of reach some compromise in terms of this particular resolution. I think it goes without saying that no one at this particular point is willing to give up any of their budget. I think one thing that we need to kind of keep in mind is the fact that the country is hurting at this particular point. I mean, people are losing their jobs, businesses are closing, and I just don't believe at this particular point the Shelby County government should be immune from such cuts. I think one of the things that CFO can attest to as well, and that is the fact that we have forecast a revenue shortfall, but we believe based on this pandemic that this particular shortfall is going to be a lot larger than earlier predicted. That goes without saying that these cuts are definitely not across the board cuts. It's money that many of the elected officials as well as divisions within the administration has historically given back at the end of the year. We believe these cuts are necessary yesterday as well as they are today, and we would like to respectfully ask the entire commission to support this resolution.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Gilliam. If I could, let's now go to Commissioner Lowry, and then I'll call on Commissioner Turner. Commissioner Lowry, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, sir. You have the floor, my friend.
Thank you. So I just want to know what impact, Chairman, you referenced the email here. So that's what I'm talking about, the memorandums that we received via email. We can get, one, if you can answer that, CEO, if you can answer that, we'll have our attorney as well. What impact do these memorandums have that's been sent over by the judges have on this impact? Our vote, none whatsoever.
I'm not going to answer. Let me either let Marcy or Mr. Gilliam respond to that.
And does it make us subject to a lawsuit? Thank you.
Commissioners, I would encourage you to look at the email that came from the county attorney's office today. And Marcy Ingram, if you could come on the line, because I do know you're here and you can be heard. Could you please cover the 2 questions that the county attorney's office posed to us in terms of the commission's right regarding the budget? Marcy Ingram, can you explain that for us? Thank you for your patience, Commissioner Lowry. Just 1 second.
Okay, it said unmuted, so can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you first please address the letter we got from the county attorney's office just a short time ago regarding those questions? Could you recant the question and the answer, and then also respond to Commissioner Lowry's question about the letter we got from, I think it was the judge's clerk. Could you give us an explanation of that, please, Counselor?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I haven't seen a letter from the judges, so I would need to get caught up on that one.
Okay. Can you please, I'll forward the one from the judges, but can you please explain we had a number of elected officials ask commissioners about our right to adjust the budget at this point. And Marcy, would you please explain that opinion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We had 2 questions that were posed to our office. The first one was, may the Board of Commissioners reduce the budget of an elected official, potentially without the elected official's consent, when the fiscal year 2020 budget and fiscal year 2020 tax rate has already been adopted by the Board of County Commissioners? And we answered yes to that question. You have that authority by the charter. The legislative body also has that authority through state law to amend the budget to make increases or decreases.
Thank you, but you have not seen the letter that came from the judge's group?
I have not seen that, no.
Commissioners, could you please forward that to Ms. Ingram, and then I'll get her back on the line. But I think to your point, Commissioner Lowry, the legal opinion we got back, I think addresses at least some of the concerns that were in that letter.
Okay, that makes sense. I just feel comfortable with her seeing the.
No, I understand.
The letter.
I understand.
Thank you.
I'm now going to go to Commissioner Turner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been contacted by a number of the elected officials as well, and I think that I think part of the issue, and I know it's difficult to get, I know that it's difficult to get the other elected officials all on this one call, but at least what we're hearing from the administration is the other side doesn't want to negotiate. So they don't want to cut anything out the budget. So when we talk to all these other offices, it's a zero. Yet the CFO indicated that she hadn't been able to speak to 3 of the offices. And I'm hearing from some of the elected officials that they are willing to negotiate. So we're hearing 3 different things. 1, nobody wants to negotiate the cut. 2, 3 of the offices have not been at least contacted or spoken with the CFO. And 3, the countywide elected officials are willing to negotiate a decrease. So again, as the case would have it, we can't get all of the countywide elected officials together on this call to hear from each one of them. I know Trustee Regina Morrison Newman is on, but the other ones are not. And so, and then my last part here, and I'm gonna finish up, Mr. Chair. When I hear from the administration, they've indicated to me, I think the trustee said she wants to speak, but when I hear from the administration, they indicated that they are afraid of a mass spin down by the elected officials if we don't act quickly. They fear that in 2 weeks, there will be no money there. So I'm throwing it out as an option, and I'll get back in the queue after all the comments. I'm wondering if there's a way to say, if we can freeze any spin downs so the elected officials won't exhaust their budgets between now and the next commission date, could we get the CFO to contact those other 3 offices? And could there be a true mediation between the parties? Because we're hearing 2 different stories at this point. So I'll yield the floor, Mr. Chair, and come back in the queue for a motion to defer this to the next commission date with the proviso that there be a freeze and there be no spin down of these funds until there is a mediation. Now I'll come back in the queue to formally make that motion after we hear from everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Turner. CAO Gilliam or the mayor or CFO, do you want to respond to any of that, or do you want to hold? Mr. Gilliam. Mr. Gilliam and Ms. Crosby, you have the floor.
My comments regarding a possible moratorium on spending is don't really understand exactly how that would work. I mean, obviously, a number of department heads and elected officials have procurement cards. And so it would be virtually impossible to direct or order anyone not to spend anything between now and the next committee meeting. I just don't know how that would work. I mean, I guess it's something that can be considered, but again, I think the resolution that this administration would like the commission to approve is the one that you have before you.
Thank you. Any other comments, Ms. Crosby, before I go to the trustee?
I concur with Chief Gillum.
Thank you, CFO. Trustee Newman, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to state that when we did meet with Ms. Crosby on Thursday, we did indicate all the funds that we had available, which were not unencumbered, and including that personnel money, which was that is what was remaining for the entire year, not a quarter. That is what was remaining for the entire year, $23,000. So that money plus what is unencumbered in our O&M came to $261,004, and that is what we told her we had available. That is approximately 3.6 of our budget.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, trustee. Okay. Are there any other commissioners in the queue regarding item number 14? Let me go to the Vice Chairman Jones. You have the floor, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Um, I have some questions as it relates. Can you get Megan back on board? I want to
Let's,
ask about this.
if Megan can get on the board, if not, let's defer to our own attorney, Miss Marcy Ingram.
Exactly. So one of the things that when I was reading this opinion, and I'm reading it, and it says the chief financial officer advised the mayor and the county commission of potential revenue shortfalls. According to the CFO, this is due to the fact that our revenues are likely to be short by at least a net 8 million in the proposed budget resolution for a total of 16 million. So I need some. Are we talking 16 million or are we talking 8 million? I'm reading in this opinion. I just need some clarity from them as to what that means.
Miss, do you want to comment on this, Miss Crosby, CFO?
Certainly, if since they are my words, if I may. There's been some confusion over the fact that there was a 7.9 million deficit in this year's adopted budget that I commented on in earlier meetings this year. This proposed reduction is not to offset that existing 7.9 million. In addition to that adopted deficit of 7.9 million, for which is cured by the use of fund balance, we will see a revenue shortfall this year. Currently, we have 69 million as of the end of March left to collect. Last year, what we collected in the fourth quarter was 65 million. Last year, we did not make our budget. There was more that could have been collected. And we had all of our county offices open. The county clerk was still collecting the wheel tax. The wheel tax had not been deferred until mid-June. The county trustee was still making collection calls, and there was a lien sale the end of April, beginning of May. We do not have those collection mechanisms in place this year. And so it is unlikely that we will even get to the 65 million that we got to last year. Right now, collections to date, we're 5.6 million short of where we were at the end of March in 2019. Yes, our budget was reduced slightly this year because we fell short last year because of a miscalculation. But all of that is not relevant to what we're facing at this point in time with the projections of decreased revenue collections due to the coronavirus. 133,000 people in Tennessee lost their jobs last week. The stores are closed. The stores that are closed can't pay their rents to their landlords, and their commercial landlords can't necessarily pay their property taxes. So this is in addition to the 7.9 million deficit.
Okay, so.
Did you get your, Commissioner Turner, excuse me, Commissioner Jones, your time's up. Did you get your question answered?
In 100 different ways, yes. But here's my, and she took so long to answer that question. I did have a couple of questions. So let me ask my questions, then I will allow her to answer.
Well, Commissioner, your time is up for 3 minutes. Can I come back?
I'll get back in the queue. I'll get back in the queue.
And we have so many people that want to be spoken to, but I am going to follow the rules today. I'm going to do 3 minutes per response, and that way we'll get everybody, and I'm going to hear from everybody. So far, we've heard from Commissioner Jones. Next in the queue will be Commissioner Turner, Clerk Halbert, Trustee Newman, and then as needed, our county attorney, I've been told, is available by phone now. I don't know if that'll work, but we'll try. Let me just try for a second. Attorney Smith, can you hear us? Megan Smith, can you hear us? Can we hear you? More important too.
Can you hear me at this point?
Okay, now we can. If you can just be in the queue as we need you.
Yes, sir.
So we heard. Very good. Commissioner Turner, you have 3 minutes.
Mr. Chair, I kind of wanted to hear from the other elected officials, so I'll return back to the queue. I apologize.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Commissioner Turner. Clerk Halbert, you have the floor. You have 3 minutes. Clerk Wanda Halbert, you have the floor. We can't hear you, Clerk Halbert. Let me go to Trustee Regina Newman. Trustee?
I was not on the list, Commissioner. I was writing in.
Okay.
Kuhn and Morrison were asking to speak.
Okay, thank you. Clerk Kuhn, you have 3 minutes. Clerk Kuhn, there you go. Can you turn your microphone on for us? If someone will unmute Clerk Kuhn. Clerk Kuhn, we can't hear you. Staff members, we're trying to hear from Ms. Kuhn.
Chairman, we'll get them looped in. They're gonna have to call in.
Okay, Ms. Kuhn, we're going to need you to call in. Staff will be in touch with you. Clerk Bill Morrison, can we hear you? My friend.
He has the same problem, Chairman. We're calling them.
Okay, very good. My friend, Melvin Burgess. Can you turn your microphone on, Commissioner? We can't hear you. Assessor. Assessor Burgess.
There it is.
There you go, my friend.
Sorry, Chairman.
Assessor Burgess, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, good evening to you and good evening to all of the commissioners. And I think you and I spoke this morning, and we, I've been, I've sat on both sides of this, and I think I sent out a letter, that talked about, we are all willing to work together and to communicate and try to understand, by looking at our budgets, what we can and what we can give away. So that's not the issue, or that is the issue as far as the communication part. But what I'm hearing is, and I don't think it's really fair that I heard from a CFO that talked, not CFO, I'm sorry, CEO that talked about this pandemic. And I said in a letter that all of y'all should have gotten, and Chairman, when I was on the commission, we were all together. Some of my colleagues that are still there, there was a miscalculation of funds back in 2018, which totaled about $7 million. And we're still harboring on that. That still is in the way. And I came to the commission, if you all know, but in October or in November, and talked about the shortfall due to that, as well as due to some pending appeals we had out there, and due to some pilots that we were going to go have this issue. But what I don't want, because I heard it on television, it talked about that, we're being greedy as elected officials, when we got a pandemic going on. But I want to be clear, the pandemic has nothing to do with the shortfall of this $8 million. So let's just be straight about it, and let's do what we're supposed to do and work together and communicate. Now, I've been asked to cut, and I don't have a problem, but however, I just want to let the administration know I am in the middle of a reappraisal. I'm in the middle of that, and I am requesting funds only for the reappraisal, which is a statute. And of course, the reappraisal is next year, but I'm preparing for this year. And the positions that I have been asked to cut, those are already in there to help with the reappraisal. The reappraisal is coming up in 2021, and by statute and by the DPA, we have to be in a year in advance, and we're already working on our reappraisal. So that's what I'm saying. If somebody would have communicated that to me earlier, then we could have worked this out. But how can I give up 7 employees going through a reappraisal year? That's all I'm saying. But we got to do a better job with the administration, with y'all communicating with us. Like, I just received some information from the attorney here by email no longer than about 10, 15 minutes ago. And that's a problem. But again, I want people to know that, we're not being, not ready. We're not being, not adhering to. I understand. I've been on the county commission. I know how it is. And I've cut, when I was with the school system. But let's be fair about it and give everybody an opportunity to look at their budgets to make sure, because in my department, I represent 68% of the county's revenue that's identified. It comes from here. So those are kind of things that we need to conversate about before I'm asked to take 7 positions out of my budget. Thank you, sir.
Very good. Assessor Burgess, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend.
Good to hear from you. Do we have Clerk Kuhn on the phone at this point? Staff?
No, she has to get the call-in number. Hold 1 second.
Okay. Any
Chairman
other?
Jones.
Yes.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Hey, by the way, by the grace of God, my daughter's flight was canceled to New York. Thank you, brother. You were praying.
Hey, my prayer worked, didn't it?
Thank you, brother.
My prayer worked.
Thank you, brother.
Wow. That is that's an inside joke we'll have to tell everybody later. You know, God works in mysterious ways, doesn't he? We are waiting on those elected officials to get in the queue. Until they get in the queue, I'm going to go back to the regular queue. Commissioner Vice Chairman Jones, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. I guess here's some of the questions that I have, and I need to know what are the. Can you hear me,
Commissioner Jones? Yeah, Commissioner Jones. Who are your questions directed at, so we can get them on the line?
You can get the CFO.
Okay, CFO, and also
may need to be there. So here's my question.
Commissioner, go ahead.
I'm going to ask a couple of questions. So, what are the actuals for elected in every account that you want to reduce? That's the first question. What are their actuals in those accounts? Do you have the March collection tally from all of the elected offices of what they collected in March as it relates to the actual revenues that are on the book and not what we saw from the previous month? Also, there are $19 million that's transferring out of fund balance to go to corrections. So while we're cutting here and we're transferring all of this money out, is this part of the shortfall that you're seeing from this budget, what we're transferring out to cover corrections? And last question, is that contract for the state up this year for us to review so we can stop spending all of this fund balance dollars to cover for shortfalls that comes out of corrections? Those are my questions.
Very good questions, Vice Chairman. Let me go to our CFO, Ms. Crosby.
Certainly. I'll start with the last question, the corrections contract. The corrections contract is up for review and renewal this year. I have looked at the historical reimbursement and the historical spending for corrections. I have prepared a presentation on that. I am trying to speak with the state about that. Their reimbursements, you are correct, have not been sufficient to cover all of our costs. But part of the cost of corrections are also the misdemeanants who are county inmates out at the correction center. Corrections is being asked to stop spending and hold spending, but they are not. It is a transfer from the general fund. It is not on this list of proposed reductions because they are a transfer. The March collection tally for revenues, I believe that we are still waiting on the final revenue numbers from the trustee. The numbers that I have quoted on this at this meeting are based on the trustee's revenue report that is online as of March 31st this year and March 31st last year. When we get those final numbers, we expect it to be perhaps the end of this week and have them worked in by mid next week. The actuals for the electeds in every account, are you speaking of the actual historical spending over the past 3 years, or are you speaking of the spending through March this year?
I want to know what is actually in their accounts now that we would be reducing. So I can't reduce something that's not there. I want to know actually, how much money is in each of these accounts, and is there the ability to do what y'all are asking us to do? Based on O&M and based on personnel. So if I look into March, a lot of those dollars have already been spent on personnel. And so moving forward, that's what I'm trying to see is what is the actuals in those accounts.
The actuals, you have 3/4 of the year there, and they at this point they haven't spent the last quarter. If you project out for the last quarter based on the first 9 months, which is not, it can't work in every case because some of them have added staff and increased salaries since the beginning of the year. You do have a couple where we need to look at them in more detail and make sure that there are no layoffs, if that is, the will of everyone to avoid layoffs, that this doesn't cause any layoffs. But it does seem like in the majority of cases, this is feasible.
Okay.
Commissioner Jones, you're out of time. Did that resolve your question?
I did one last question. Who generally gives the most money back historically every year? And then I'm done.
The sheriff.
It really depends on the year, and if someone's budget was adjusted up to hire new staff and it took them a while to hire them. I can't tell you right here off the top of my head which one has the biggest quote unquote give back each year, but I will say that this is not really, give backs are how people seem to look at the money in this budget, and it's not really a give back if your revenues are down. If your revenues are down, you really need your expenses to be down to match them.
Okay.
Commissioner Jones?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Very good. Before Commissioner Jones came up, we had a number of clerks that wanted to be heard from. Bill Morrison as well as Heidi Kuhn. We heard from Assessor Burgess. Is Bill Morrison or Heidi Kuhn available?
Chairman, this is Clerk Kuhn. I'm on the line.
Okay, Clerk Kuhn, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, I just wanted to address some of the things that Commissioner Turner had asked in regard to, there's been a lot of questions. There's also been a lot of misunderstanding and miscommunication. I don't think that any of us elected officials are anti-coronavirus or anti-cuts. I think the issue that we basically had is how this was handled. If we were allowed to have some additional time to be able to look at our budgets, I think that would be very helpful. I think a lot of us felt blindsided that the way this was communicated, the way the information was received, the way we were told what we need to do, it put a bad taste in our mouth. Now, we're not trying to retaliate by any means. We certainly understand that there is a financial crisis and an issue, and we want to be able to help with that. We are certainly all on the same page in regard to that. But what we're asking is, instead of only giving us a small window to hurry up and provide the information of what we could cut, why not allow us the extra time to try and make sure that what we have in our budget is something we can cut, which is feasible, which would help the county.
Are you done, Ms. Kuhn?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kuhn. Is there any, okay. Can I please hear Commissioner, I'm so sorry, Director Gilliam? Do you have a comment? I can't hear you, Director Gilliam. Do you have a comment?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if this is about layoffs, I just want to reemphasize the administration's position that we want to do everything that we can to avoid layoffs. I have heard a couple of the elected officials mention the possibility of having to lay some of their staff off. That should not happen, and that is not what we are trying to support. With all due respect to the assessor, I think he indicated that this has nothing to do with the coronavirus pandemic. I think it has everything to do. Obviously, I think we knew that there was going to be a revenue shortfall, but I believe, again, that revenue shortfall has been expanded due to the coronavirus, and we're just trying to put some things in order to assist us with dealing with the coronavirus at this point. Again, no layoffs.
Mr. Gilliam, thank you. Mr. Gilliam, thank you. We heard from Clerk Hattie Kuhn. Is Clerk Morrison on the phone? Bill Morrison? Is Bill Morrison on the line? We will continue to try to reach Mr. Morrison. I'm going to go to my kind friend, Commissioner Reginald Milton. 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Going back to Mr. Gilliam, you stated the fact that this is all about the coronavirus. Of the 10 million, how much of this would be directed toward the virus?
What we're asking for is to fund some of our emergency management operations to the tune of $2 million. I believe we have approximately $800,000 or so allocated for PPE. We have around $500,000 to infuse funding into community services to continue to meet the needs of so many within this community. We're looking at overtime for the health department. Obviously, we know that they have been working around the clock for the last few weeks, as well as our staff out at emergency management. And with the indication that additional federal funding as well as state funding could be flowing this way, I think there's money in the $2 million to fund a couple of positions in community services in order to manage the $500,000 to $750,000 that we receive from the state, and any additional federal and state funding that may be coming our way in the very near future associated with the coronavirus.
Well, let me state very clearly that I absolutely agree with you that this is something critical and we need to move on this as quickly as possible. So I can appreciate the necessity for speed. And also directing these funds toward the health department and Homeland Security, I think is, in essence, they are the ones who are always on top of the data. But my question would be, could we not pull the $2 million from rainy day fund with the guarantee that once we pull the 10 million, we would take the 2 million and put it back into the rainy day fund, and that would give the elected officials some time to sit down with the administration and work this out?
Obviously, Commissioner, I mean, that is not our proposal. It is an option, but again, we believe that the $10 million is there. We believe that Shelby County government could make this $10 million cut and continue to provide its core services to the community. And out of that $10 million, we're again asking that $2 million be provided to support those efforts related to the coronavirus.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Repeating your point is not answering actually the question I was asking you. You're very good, but again, the point is that is there a reason why we cannot give the elected officials a little more time? Is there a reason we're pushing back so hard on this? I mean, they're basically asking, give us some time so that we can work with the administration and try to come up with the dollars that they're asking to be cut. Would this not work better for everyone? If we went ahead and just pulled the 2 million from our rainy day, handled this corona, as you said, this is the reason why we're doing it, and then give you and the administration time, give the elected officials and the administration time to work out this rest of this issue, and us, we can move forward.
Yes, again, when I say it has everything to do with the coronavirus, we're talking about the revenue shortfall as well. If that's the will of the commission at this particular point, is to fund the 2 million out of the reserve fund or fund balance with some type of assurance that if the 10 million is there, that we would replenish the fund balance. I guess that's something that the administration would have to live with. But again, our resolution is a resolution that's before the commission as we speak.
I understand. And I know my time is running out, Mr. Chair. I'm just trying to find a way that we can all work this out together. But this commitment of the administration to move forward with this 10 million, I would be kind of hard pressed to be in agreement with you. But I would like to say that I would be disappointed that we would not at least try to find an alternative working with everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so
Hello.
much. Commissioner, hi, who is this?
Hi, this is Wanda Halbert. I'm sorry.
Ms. Halbert, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too want to join my colleagues in expressing the fact that each of us are extremely sensitive to the challenges that we all face with the COVID-19 virus. And specifically, I would love for you all to have an opportunity to hear what's happening in some of our offices, which is hence part of the reason why our revenues are down, particularly in the county clerk's office. It's been really tough. And for the last little more than a week now, I've been the secretary, the clerk, going to the front door, collecting the mail. And so it's been a challenge. But this is also a different issue in that we were called to a meeting back in January, and we were told then about the shortfall. We did not have our first meeting on the COVID-19 until March the 9th. And I remember it very vividly because I was very frustrated that we're an organization where the public walks straight off the street and we touch every last one of them. And we had no idea this pandemic was going on and had hit Shelby County at that point. And so while I agree with my colleagues, we want to support you all, but I do also remember hearing that Shelby County government has been operating over the last 3 years on a deficit. And that's why I asked the question last Wednesday, exactly what caused this problem? Because when we heard about this in January, nothing was mentioned until March 9th about the COVID virus. And I think those are some of our challenges. Our organization, we have definitely been struggling. And I was so proud of the fact that working with CFO Crosby and our new administrators, CAO Gerald Thornton and our accounting manager, Patrick Smith, we were just getting on the right road, but that didn't happen until between November and December of this past year. And last week, about 30 minutes before our conference call, I received a call and the administration had already targeted the dollars that they were looking at in my budget. Now that we have been shut down for a couple of weeks, this is our 3rd week, I have no idea what is going to happen in this organization. We've been trying to work on a modification plan, which may mean we need to get some temporaries in here to help us generate this revenue as quick as we can, get past these documents. But there are a number of challenges that are happening. And for me, I don't have a problem helping, even though we don't have a whole lot, but we definitely need to be on the same page and clearly understand that something happened that we're not talking about. And now that this virus is in Shelby County, it's inside of our organizations as well, Mr. Chair. And thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Clerk Halbert. Commissioner Wright, you've had the opportunity to speak, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Morrison is on the call, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Morrison, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And let me start off by saying I want to thank Ms. Wells, Ms. Crosby, and Chief Gillum. We have worked together since Thursday and Wednesday when the conference call took place, and we were working through issues in particulars, but I want to echo what the other elected officials are saying. Clearly, my budget is much smaller than everyone else, being the probate court, but I do think it's an issue of time, and I do think over the next week or so, most of everyone can come to an agreement. Ms. Crosby has a great team. They work very hard with us. I know they want to work hard with everyone else. But I do think, as Clerk Kuhn mentioned earlier, and Ms. Halbert and Mr. Burgess, it's a question of working through this, because even in my situation, a lot of my underspend that was identified was based on employees being on FMLA. And it's those particulars that I think create some of the confusion with some of the issues that we all have to work together. And to speak to Gillum, and to speak to Chief Gillum, where he was mentioning, and certainly CFO Crosby talks about revenue shortfall. Unfortunately and sadly, in this situation, I'm 25% above today alone because of what this environment is creating with wills and unfortunately deaths and other things. I'm actually getting busier. We had 17 people walk in our court today for direct interaction with my staff, and then we will continue to be there to serve. But not every division is going to suffer or go through what we're going through with the amount of people we actually have coming in. Unfortunately, again, in this environment, our business will trend up. But I do want to commend Chief Gillum. I want to commend the commissioner for to speak, and Ms. Crosby as well for their work. And I do think, again, a little time, I think everyone can work through this, because we're all under circumstances we've never dealt with, and we all want to contribute and help because we all face this challenge together. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have, and then I appreciate the opportunity to speak to everyone today.
Okay, very good. Very good. I'm going to go to my back in the queue. Commissioner Van Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I think we've been on this matter for quite a while, and what came clear from sort of this dialogue, especially from Commissioner Milton's dialogue, was that what we're doing today, I believe, is presenting a $2 million allocation to assist with COVID-19. Commissioner Milton indicated, could we just take that out of the rainy day and at least phase it to where we would at least replenish that 2 million first, so we could put that back in rainy day. The overall ask is about 10 million, so we still have another 8 million to go, but at least 2 of the 10 is for COVID-19. The other 8 million was not identified to redress COVID-19, if I can understand that dialogue. So I think if we were to take this to the next commission meeting, we would at least be able to pull the 2 million out. And as a baseline, we know that we have to cover the 2 million by next commission meeting to replenish COVID-19. The other 8 million is something separate from COVID-19, from what I've heard from CAO Gillum. So all the 10 million is not COVID-19. So based on that, I would move to defer the meeting to the next commission meeting. And again, at that time, as a baseline, we got to find 2 million to allocate this 2 million we're about to do in a short second here. And then in order to find another 8 million, I think we can work on that. But I don't think it is as pressing to pull the full 10 today, because we know that we got 2 that we're addressing today. And I think we can at least make 2 happen at the next commission meeting and deal with the 8 later. So I move this item to the next commission meeting based on the same.
There is a motion on the floor from Chairman Turner to move. You're moving item number 14 to the next commission meeting or the next committee meeting?
I'll move it to the next committee. I think that's probably more appropriate.
Is there a second? Is there a second on Commissioner Turner's motion?
Second.
It's a second from Commissioner Milton. Is there an objection from anyone?
I object.
We have an objection from Commissioner Morrison. And now we're going to speak. Parliamentarian Rankin, if you can help me through this. We have a motion and a second on the floor on item number 14 to move it back to the next committee meeting. And then there was an objection from Commissioner Morrison. Commissioner, excuse me, Parliamentarian, I would now go to listening to discussion on the objection, correct? I can't hear you. Ms. Rankin? Would someone unmute?
Okay,
Ms.
I was just, okay. So,
Tell us what we need to do now.
a motion to refer this item to committee, and it was seconded, and now you have an objection. So if there's no discussion, to the objection, then we can take the motion to refer to a vote.
Can we discuss the objection? Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
I'd love to speak.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Commissioner Morrison.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm speaking on the objection then.
Please.
It's my view that it's a very reasonable resolution in that this community has to learn to work together. And what I hear and I appreciate from all of our elected officials is, and I've been listening, at the same time though, when I think the greatest comment made, and I can't even remember if it was Chief Gillum who made it, but when revenues are down, we have to therefore also adjust expenses. And it's incumbent on all of us across the whole county to do that in order to make the budget balance so that we don't have larger problems in the future. And the administration has clearly spoken. And so in the spirit of working together, I don't even see these as cuts. It's really an adjustment at this stage, the numbers that they've spoken about. And so in light of much lower revenues, we have to adjust accordingly because with our expenses, or else we're just not using good common sense, in my opinion. That's all. Thank you.
Very good. I'm going to go to the queue. First, we're going to have Commissioner Ford, and then we're going to have Commissioner Sawyer. 2 minutes apiece, please.
All right, this is on the delay. Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm not against the delay, but I do have questions about the possible consequence on an item that Commissioner Sawyer, I, and Commissioner Jones are going to bring next. Commissioner Turner mentioned that about the $2 million. Commissioner Sawyer and I did find another revenue source for that. We just didn't get a chance to articulate it with enough time this past Wednesday. I know that we were trying to get some items done, but what I'd like to do is if this item does go back to committee, when we get to item 15, I want to be, or Commissioner Sawyer be one of the first ones to discuss that particular item because it can answer one of Commissioner Turner's questions on how to fill that $2 million gap. And that funding that Commissioner Sawyer and I found does not affect the judges, the courts, or the electeds as well. So that's the only courtesy I ask. I hope that we can take a small pause to see what we have in item 15, which will sort of affect item 14's vote. So I'm just trying to make sure that we have, I see Commissioner Sawyer in the queue, so I just yield to Commissioner Sawyer. After.
Thank you for your comments, Commissioner Ford. Commissioner Sawyer, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I was generally going to say the same thing, Chairman. If we could just, since we're getting to the next item, I'm cool with the 8 million being deferred, but I think that the 2 million is essential to be figured out now.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Sawyer. Are there any other commissioners that want to talk about the deferral? Okay. I can't, commissioners, move to another chair unless I move to one of the one at the conference room table. So I have not spoken on this item today. I'm going to just speak to the deferral, commissioners. And like many of you, all of this weighs heavy on me as an elected official, as a citizen, as an employee in this community. We have over 12,000 unemployed Shelby County citizens right now in the city of Memphis. We're better than Nashville. They had 32,000 at the same time, but we have 12,000 unemployed right now in Memphis and Shelby County, and the numbers are soaring. We are asking for the last 3 months, April, May, and June, for elected officials to cut back. I haven't heard, other than some promises to work together in the future, there hasn't been one elected official who's offered a solution or even offered to quite frankly work with the administration in terms of today and today's timeline. Today's timeline is in line with the coronavirus. It doesn't know time, it doesn't know days, and I feel like if we cut now proactively, it's going to help our budget process in 2021, which we are in the middle of right now. And it's going to be unprecedented, quite frankly. For the elected officials that want to continue to talk about it, I hope they're willing to talk about very significant job cuts in their departments in the next fiscal year. That is the reality. I speak in realities. I spoke in realities for months now, but no one wants to cut. And we want to continue to rob money out of a rainy day fund that continues to dry up. We always tend to eat the hamburger today, but we want to pay for it tomorrow. And this commissioner says, please, please, let's show some fiscal stewardship, and please, elected officials, work with the administration, work with our CFO. They've made a pledge that they're not going to suggest layoffs in the next 90 days. And so I'm gonna vote against deferring this item today. And I think if you ask your constituents in your neighborhoods that have lost jobs and are scared to death, they would expect you to make a hard decision today. And that's what I'm going to ask you to do. That's all I have to say. Commissioners, let's go to a vote on the deferral. If you vote yes, you will be deferring this to the next committee meeting. If you vote no, we will continue to hear the general operating budget and position budget to reduce personnel and operating, etc. Again, if you refer, I'm sorry.
Never mind. That was it.
Again, if you vote yes, you're referring it to the next committee meeting. If you vote no, you're objecting. Let's prepare the screens for voting.
Commissioner Turner,
Aye.
Morrison,
No.
Sawyer,
Aye.
Whaley,
No.
Wright,
No.
Milton,
Aye.
Brooks, Bradford,
No.
Ford,
Aye.
Mills,
No.
Lowry,
Aye.
Jones, Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Chairman Billingsley.
Aye. I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm trying to keep up with the votes. I'm voting no against the deferral. No.
We have aye votes from Commissioners Turner, Sawyer, Milton, Ford, Lowry, and Jones. Commissioners Morrison, Whaley, Wright, Bradford, Mills, and Chairman Billingsley have voted no. We have 6 ayes and 6 noes.
Fails.
So that item fails. So we are back to item number 14. Commissioners, can everybody hear me? Commissioners, on item number 14, I would like to offer up an amendment that possibly the majority of us will support. And let me read it to you. Be it further resolved that if the proposed reduction for any department would result in the layoff of personnel, it may be modified for that department by the amount necessary to avoid such a layoff. And if the proposed reduction would result in any impairment to an existing valid contract, it may be modified for that department by the amount necessary to avoid such impairment. Commissioners, in essence, we're promising, if you support this amendment, we would be basically promising the elected officials over the next 90 days, we would not, these cuts would not affect them having to lay people off, and it would also not impair any existing valid contracts. And I offer that up in the form of a motion. I heard a second by Commissioner Morrison. And now we go to discussion, commissioners. Do we have any discussion? We have a motion and a second on that. Commissioner Sawyer. And then Commissioner Lowry. Commissioner Sawyer, you have the 3 minutes, please.
Yeah, I would call the question, and except for Commissioner Lowry.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Sawyer. The question's been called by Commissioner Sawyer. Let's bit out of respect for Commissioner Lowry. Commissioner Lowry, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that from both of you. I just want to circle back and see if our county attorney, well, no, not county attorney, Marcy has got a chance to read the letters that were sent from the judges, and that
very good,
and concur and can just set my mind at ease on our next vote.
Very good. Commissioner Lowry, thank you so much. And we also now have the county attorney available as well. So we have 2 great counselors. Let's first go to Marcy Ingram, and then if the county attorney would like to share, our deputy county attorney, she can also join in. First, were you able to read that document to our county
yes,
attorney?
Mr. Chairman. Yeah,
Yes,
are
ma'am.
you speaking of the one that came from Chancery Court?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Yes, I was able to read it.
The question you have, Commissioner Lowry, is what? To be specific to our county attorney about the letter. If you'll ask the question, please. Commissioner Lowry?
I'm sorry, Chair, I was on mute.
Restate. Marcy has been able to read the letter that you referenced. Now, please restate your question to her, please.
My question, now that you read the letter, just want to make sure that we're on solid legal footing to make any decisions here, and it doesn't open us up to any legal action or due to that opinion of the judges.
Yes, Commissioner Lowry. We are a charter form of government. So we have certain statutory and charter abilities to do things that other non-charter governments are not. So as long as we are not encroaching with the separations of powers with the state constitution, you are the legislative branch. As long as you're not encroaching on the judicial branch, you can make budget cuts. I mean, you would be limited in the types of cuts that you can make, but you can make budget cuts.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that all correspondence have been read. Thank you.
To our county attorney, Megan, do you have anything else you want to say on that? Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Lowry, for the question. Thank you, Marcy, for the response. The question was called by Commissioner Sawyer. Let's prepare the screen for voting. We did have an appropriate motion and a second as amended, so we will be voting on item number 14 as amended. Please prepare the screens for voting.
Commissioner Turner,
Nay.
Morrison,
Aye.
Sawyer,
Nay.
Whaley,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Milton,
No.
Brooks, Bradford,
Yes.
Ford,
My turn? No.
Mills,
Aye.
Lowry,
No.
Jones,
Nope.
Wow.
Chairman Billingsley.
Yes.
We have aye votes from Commissioners Morrison, Whaley, Wright, Bradford, Mills, and Chairman Billingsley. Commissioners Turner, Sawyer, Milton, Ford, Lowry, and Jones have voted no. We have 6 ayes and 6 noes.
That item fails. Okay, Commissioners, we're back on item number 14. Commissioners, do we want to revote on the original, since the amendment failed, Ms. Rankin, would we now vote again on the original item number 14? I don't think the votes are going to be any different, but
Sure ain't. Y'all,
if everybody could please mute their microphones, please. Ms. Rankin? We can't hear you, Ms. Rankin.
My understanding is that you all were voting on the main motion as amended,
That's correct, but it failed.
so the item failed.
Okay, so item 14 is failed and done for the day?
Someone
or-
on the prevailing side could bring it up for reconsideration and possibly amend it, or just bring it back up for, if anyone from the prevailing side wants to bring it back up. Otherwise, we move on to the next item.
Well, Commissioners, I'll hear from you, but we voted twice now. And Commissioner Sawyer, do you have anything else? We've heard this item twice. It has failed twice.
I'm sorry. No, sir. I thought we'd move to the next item.
No.
That's where I was making a request to speak.
Okay. Okay, if I don't see anyone in the, Commissioner Ford?
So I can understand the parliamentarians. So I'm assuming since this is a Monday meeting, before the minutes are approved, somebody could be on the prevailing side to bring it back up in 2 weeks. Am I getting that correctly? I just want to make sure that I understand that right.
Yes, sir, you stated that correctly.
All right, so in 2 weeks, if somebody brings it back up, gotcha. Okay, that's all I needed, Chairman.
But Ms. Rankin, since it's 6-6, there is no one on the prevailing side.
The nose.
Get
out.
I missed my law degree, Ms. Rankin.
But you got that one though. You might have a parliamentarian degree. Okay, let me review on what is the procedure if there is no prevailing side. Okay. In that instance, it's failed. So the motion to reconsider shall be made before approval of the minutes for the meeting at which the vote was taken. So that's today. Oh, no, that's not today. So that's the next meeting for which, at which the,
That's correct, Miss.
yeah. So wait a minute. Before the approval of minutes, which the meeting at which the vote was taken. Oh yeah, that's today. Sorry. No. That's not correct. The next commission meeting is when the minutes will be approved. And so it's actually the next commission meeting. So it's the opposite way around that Commissioner Ford stated. So if the action is carried in the affirmative, which it was not, then the motion to reconsider shall be made before a meeting is adjourned. So that would have been today, but it failed. So because it failed, we have until the next commission meeting or the meeting at which the minutes are approved to make the motion. So it's what Commissioner Ford stated, but it's the other way around. So it does apply to this because it failed.
So, Mr. Rankin, just one more time, just repeat that one
Okay.
more time so I can understand it.
So pursuant to the permanent rules of order, Rule 20, 2, if the action failed, which it did, the motion for reconsideration shall be made before the approval of the minutes for the meeting at which vote was taken. So the approval of the minutes would occur when, in the procedure when you take roll and all those things, and then you approve the minutes. So that would be at the next commission meeting.
So
So what-
either side could come up with a seventh vote. Is that correct?
Well, it says on the prevailing side,
So we got a tie.
only commissioner on prevailing side may move for reconsideration. Well, I think that would be either side because there was no prevailing side.
Okay.
What I
So
need
your
to do is I need to check actual Robert's rules since our rules don't speak to when there's no prevailing side. And we'll have to, I would say we should move on so that we're not holding up. And then I can come back and give you all what Robert's rule says on the matter. Does that work? Or do you want to recess now and I can look it up now?
Commissioners, we've been at this for 2.5 hours. Let's take a 5-minute break. 5-minute break. I'm gonna set the clock here for 5 minutes, and let's take a break and let's get a good opinion because this is really important. Thank you.
Motion to reconsider.
Thank you, commissioners. Commissioners? Is everybody back? Commissioners, is everybody back?
Here.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Sawyer.
Here.
Thank you, Commissioner Milton.
Bradford's back.
Thank you, Commissioner
Morrison's
Bradford.
here.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Commissioner Wright, it looks like we have the same shirt on today. Commissioner Ford. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Jones is back.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. My friend. Commissioners, our county attorney and commission attorney are finishing up consulting on something, and we'll be right back. Ms. Rankin, are you ready? Hi, Ms. Rankin. If someone can unmute Ms. Rankin, please. We can't hear you, Commissioner. Excuse me, Ms. Rankin, we can't hear you.
My apologies for my confusion. Even though it was an equal vote, 6 yeas and 6 nays, the prevailing side would be the side that made the item fail.
Okay.
So
very good.
In order to have someone from the prevailing side, meaning the item that made the item fail, would need to make the motion to reconsider. And that motion can be made up until the minutes are approved at the next commission meeting.
So we could even, if somebody on the prevailing side wants to bring it back up tonight, we could. If someone on the no side wants to bring it back up this evening, they could, correct? Ms. Rankin?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At this point in the meeting, are there any commissioners on the no side that want to bring this item back up at this time? Okay, I'm hearing no one. If there are any commissioners, but this, the only reason I bring this up is it's such a critical item this evening. If there are any commissioners on the prevailing side, which were the no votes, if they want to entertain it, the chair will certainly entertain it if asked. Item number 15.
Item 15 comes from the Budget and Finance Committee, which is chaired by Commissioner Jones. Item 15 is to amend the FY 2020 general operating budget and position control budget in order to reallocate $2 million from the Division of Public Works to the Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency, EMA, for purposes of purchasing emergency materials needed to support efforts to reduce the spread of COVID-19 in Shelby County. This item requires the appropriation of up to $2 million from the EMA's budget, sponsored by Chairman Pro Tempore Eddie S. Jones Jr., Commissioner Edmund Ford Jr., and Commissioner Tammy Sawyer. This item is an add-on and substituted in April 1st, 2020 committee meeting.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rankin. I need a mover and seconder, please.
So move. Forward.
Move back, Commissioner Ford.
Second, Sawyer.
Second, Morrison.
Second by Sawyer, please. Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. Commissioner Jones, can I get a report on item number 15?
That item came before budget and was sent down with a favorable recommendation.
Okay, I'm going to go to the sponsors and then I'll also ask the administration to weigh in. So let me just go to the sponsors, who are Vice Chairman Jones and Commissioner Ford and Commissioner Sawyer. To the sponsors, y'all have anything you want to say about item number 15?
I do.
Commissioner Ford.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Goes back to what I was saying before we voted on the delay that failed. On Wednesday around 8:45, commissioners received the substitute, and the substitute not only identified what the dollar amount would be, but also where. That same dollar amount came from the matrix that was given to many of us that had the $10 million worth of cuts. So the 2 million that comes from Public Works does not affect judicial. It does not affect the electeds, such as your clerks, assessors, et cetera, et cetera. And it identifies a source that doesn't take us into reserves. The only thing I ask is in the resolution, the caption is correct, but in order to make sure that we stay within our scope, and we do have Director Brenda Jones that said that she would be with us in order to answer any questions, Chairman. But the only amendments that I want to make on the substitute that we brought on Wednesday, all it does is it corrects some of the wording. So what I like to do is, and I'll read it in the record, the following amendments. So there's a now therefore be a resolved clause. And what I like to do is I like to add the following language after the word personnel, where it would say and appropriated to the Shelby County Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency. That would be the first amendment. The other two are real simple. The first be it further resolved, and I'm doing this out of the insight of Director Brenda Jones to give her more latitude if this item passes. I like to move to strike the following. After the word procure, I like to strike the words at a minimum and the number 100,000, so it'll just be masked, so we won't have a cap. I like to strike the number 50,000. I like to strike the number 10,000 twice. I'd like to replace the number 500,000 with the word and to stay within the scope on what EMA can do, I like to strike and to 20,000 tests. I got one more. And then in the next be it further resolved, I like to strike the words Division of Emergency Management and replace that with Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency. That makes it more fluid, that makes it more concise. Again, it also defines where the dollars would come without trying to find new money or going to our fund balance. And I know Commissioner Sawyer and I have had conversations with Ms. Jones, so we could, I'd like to go ahead and yield to Commissioner Sawyer since she's a co-sponsor. And if we do have time, I'd like Ms. Jones to go ahead and be able to weigh on this particular item that's in front of us, Chair.
Commissioner Sawyer, you have the floor, and then I'm going to go to the queue. Okay, so Commissioner Sawyer, you have the floor.
Thank you. I mean, were those? I don't know if I'm allowed. Am I allowed to ask him a direct question, Chairman?
Who's that?
Commissioner Ford.
Yeah, sure. Go right ahead.
Was that everything? All the amendments? Do I need to make any?
No, that's it.
Okay. Sorry, I was double working. So all I'd like to just say to our fellow commissioners about this item is the history of it. Originally, like I said last week, I looked at the $2.5 million that we were planning to award to MATA and figured that that could be applied and used to get these PPEs in much quicker than we've been able to, as we just heard from Dr. Haushalter's update. And as I have heard directly from Director Jones, who I've been in touch with her entire office. And so we were not able to use the $2.5 million from MATA because that money, as you know, we reclassified as bonded funds when we switched it with the voting machines. And so we could not use that bond fund money in order to purchase PPEs, but they don't have a 20-year shelf life. They'll be used right away and won't be there to support what is required of the bonds. Commissioner Jones and Ford and I spoke. They identified this $2 million, 1.8 or 1.2 and 800,000 from the Department of Public Safety, Public Works, Department of Public Works, out of the advertised underspending that the CFO mentioned. And so that's how we came up with this funding. I do believe that our health department and our medical partners need this immediately. Director Jones can speak more to the urgency of this request, but we really need to act quickly. And I'm happy to answer any questions. We've made all of the adjustments based on our conversation with Director Jones, who leads the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, so that she has the proper allocations. She knows what they need, and she'll be making the purchases. It won't be me, Edmund, and Eddie. It will be Director Jones leading this effort. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me go, Mr. Gilliam. Let me go to Commissioner Milton, and then I'll go to Dwan Gilliam, and then we'll go to Brandon Morrison. So first, Commissioner Milton, and then to CAO Gilliam. Commissioner Milton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Am I speaking?
We can hear you. Yes, yes, sir.
Let me, forgive me, I want to make sure I'm clear on this. I think I'm a bit confused. First of all, starting with Commissioner Jones said that this went down with favorable recommendation. Did it not go down? I thought was sent down without a recommendation.
That's correct. Well, hold on a second here.
I just, for the record, I want to make sure it's correct how we're saying it.
You know what, Commissioner Milton, I think you are right, because when we had it, all of those were sent down without a recommendation. So you
just want to make sure we get clear on the record. Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Second, on the vote, the two votes that we just passed, where we tied on. Basically, then does the mayor's request for the $10 million, has that been approved now?
No.
So the administration does not get so the administration.
There was a vote, there was a tie, Commissioner, and it failed regarding the budget cuts.
Okay, so the budget cuts that requested by the administration did not pass.
Correct.
That's correct. Okay, then I just want clarity on that. I will turn this over to Mr. Gillum now. Thank you.
Okay, CAO, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. I just want to go on record and state that the administration does not support the resolution that's before you for a couple of reasons. The first reason being there's no shared sacrifice here. It appears that some funding has been identified in one of the administration divisions, and there's a desire to take that funding from Public Works. The second reason we don't support this resolution is it basically allocates all the money to EMA. We firmly believe that there are some additional needs, including the needs in community services, the overtime in the health department, as well as the overtime in community services, as well as positions that we are looking to try to fill to manage the funding that will be coming in from the administration, the state, as well as the federal government. This resolution does not take care of those needs.
Mr. Chair, in finishing my 3 minutes, I just wanted to say I've spoken with Mr. Gillum on this issue, and I was supportive of the mayor's effort for utilizing the $2 million with the Homeland Security as well as the health department. It seemed like it was much broader. And from my perspective, it is a constant this target is constantly moving. And I believe that it's Homeland Security and the health department with the data would be best to be able to respond to this. So I'm more supportive of the administration's $2 million expenditure. I respect fully my colleagues' effort, but I think that the position that the mayor has taken on this would be probably the better of the choices. Now, how the funds are coming, I talk also with Public Works. I do not believe they have that $2 million. From what I'm gathering, they don't have it. I think again, though I would prefer the time that we give the elected officials time, but that's another issue. As far as the administration's will to spend that $2 million, I think the administration has the best plan, in my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Milton. I appreciate the comments. Ms. Crosby, you got in the queue. Excuse me. Do you have anything you wanted to say?
If I could add on to what Chief Gillum said, the proposal for Public Works was done the way that all of the other proposals were done. It was based on historical underspending. Public Works has also added positions this year, and to cut 2.2 million could result in a few layoffs. I really appreciated your proposal on the last, the iteration for the substitute on the last resolution. What it did was, I think it really addressed what the electeds have been saying, is that they don't want to lay off positions and they don't want to cut their contracts that are necessary. That same proposal that you made is needed for this, because there is not 2.2 million that Public Works can cut without laying off staff or eliminating some contracts.
Hey, go ahead and turn your camera on so they can get you in line, so you can go on record making the same case.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Crosby. Thank you, Ms. Crosby. If people would turn their microphones off. Let me go back.
Hold on a second.
Let me go back to the queue. Let me go back to the queue. We heard from Rachel Milton, Commissioner Milton, sorry. Commissioner Brandon Morrison, you're next.
I think,
Brandon
thank you, Chairman. I think Commissioner Milton asked many of my questions and got the answers I expected. So thank you for that. I was confused when Commissioner Sawyer was speaking. Was she saying that the $2.5 million bond money that was set aside for MATA is now gone? That's a question. There's been some movement of money, and I'm having trouble tracking it. Thank you.
CFO Crosby, can you please respond to Commissioner Morrison's comment?
Certainly, the 2.5 million for MATA is not gone. It is just now in the bond-funded capital improvement plan. And bond funds could not be used for these purposes because they cannot be used to purchase anything with less than a 10-year useful life at $100,000.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Crosby.
That answers that question. So maybe that was a consideration, but it's still there for MATA. And I also, like Commissioner Milton said, will not support this resolution, as it sounds like it's got a lot of not really a clear source of funding, as it sounds like Public Works is in need of these funds.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our EMA Director, Brenda Jones, is with us. Director Jones, I want to thank you for all of your hard work over the last couple of weeks. I've been able to spend some time with you, and I'm so grateful to you and your team. Director Jones, do you want to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, Commissioners. First, I want to say that there is a federal declaration in regards to the COVID-19. So therefore, any expenditures that we have, we will be reimbursed on the 75-25 split, which basically means any expenditures, any invoices that I submit to the state for the federal government, we will only be reimbursed 75%. Also, I would caution you and talk to you about the significant price increase in all of the PPEs that we've seen since the COVID-19 virus. The prices have jumped significantly. Also remind you of the recent CDC guidelines where they're recommending everybody who's outside to wear a mask, which means that would increase the amount of PPEs that I would need. So currently, I'm projecting I would need $977,000 for PPEs and any other expenditures for my office. And also, we would also have some overtime involved. And I do understand, and the community services, Dorcas Young, her office is going to have also additional needs and spending, and also the health department are going to have additional needs and spending. So I support the administration.
Thank you so much, Director. Again, Director Jones, I can't thank you enough for all you've done with your team and all the coordination you're doing on an hourly basis. Let me go into the queue. Commissioner Ford, you're next in the queue. Commissioner Ford, you're next in the queue.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for your opinion on this. So again, let me just say this. That original resolution that failed 6-6, it did not address these particular items that the CFO and the CAO have articulated. If it did, I would have been more inclined to look at that particular resolution more. I've asked the CAO and their deputy to be real specific on where this money would go. I'm talking about the entire team, so that I can make the best decision. I'm hearing now from them things that were not in their resolution. I'm hearing now that, well, some of this may result in layoffs. With all due respect, this document that the CFO gave us and the commentary that she said as far as it's not the intent to lay off anyone and we'll do what we can, I feel like there's a little bit of double speak because I, as well as my two co-sponsors, were being creative to find money using a document that the CFO advertised to us. Not trying to go into the fund balance and not trying to raise taxes or anything else like that. The numbers that I keep seeing every day that we get and the map that I see, where I see now that the 2 zip codes in my district have turned to a different color. I don't think people are looking for another delay. I think people are looking for action. I know they call me and they email me all the time. So I'm looking at this resolution. It's money that was already put on the document that the CFO gave. I hear that there may not be any layoffs using this document, but now I see this resolution that comes in front using that same document. Oh, there might be layoffs. I don't want to go there, but I have an issue with, well, oh, that's different because now you have this particular item and you're using my own document that I'm pledging toward that's a good, tried and true document. At the end of the day, folks, the numbers are rising. We got people that need help. I hope that we can put a vote on this particular item because the longer we wait, the more the numbers are going to go up. And I really don't want to see another zip code map to where your district or anybody else's district needs those items. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let other people talk, but this is where I am with this. I would love for people to go ahead and support this item. And I wish the administration would be more specific in the legislation when I ask them to be more specific, because when you're not specific, anything can be done within the language that's not there. So Director, CAO Gillum, you know I asked for that on Tuesday with your deputy.
Commissioner Ford, you're out of time.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make sure that was said for the record. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think the mayor would like to be recognized. Mayor Harris, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mayor Harris, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to comment a little bit about the Commissioner Ford and Commissioner Sawyer resolution and Commissioner Jones. One thing, as I listened to the discussion to bring up is that this resolution doesn't cover the full need of the items that we need to have in order to initiate an effective COVID response. So our COVID response plan talks about $800,000 for in total for PPE. So that's $301,000 for surgical masks, $88,000 for N95 masks, $250,000 for Tyvek suits, goggles, non-contact thermometers, gloves, hand sanitizers. This plan doesn't seem to cover the full spectrum of the kind of equipment that we have been requested to have on hand to respond effectively to COVID. At the same time, our resolution talks about, or our list of items to be purchased, talks about investments in the social safety net, the rent assistance, the disability assistance, the aging assistance. It also talks about expanding our social workers. Lord knows that Dorcas needs social workers in order to connect the vulnerable populations with the need that is out there. We need a bilingual translator. And so the $2 million COVID response makes sure that we're in a position to hire a bilingual translator for purposes of serving vulnerable populations who don't speak English. And most importantly, we would be in a position to pay for overtime for the health department. As you've seen, Mr. Chairman, there is a very, very elaborate and comprehensive contact investigation and contact tracing operation that goes on every single day, 7 days a week at the health department. And it is a costly operation to run. And so we need to expand investment in that operation by making sure we can pay overtime for health department employees that warrant overtime. At the same time, we have to have overtime payment for our emergency preparedness staff as well. So there are a variety of things, as we've taken a variety of reports from all the people that have been closest to this issue and have been trying to resolve it. All those things are not contemplated in the current resolution. So the use of the funds gives me worry. In addition, the source of the funds gives me real trepidation, because what we intended to do here today, have a discussion around shared sacrifice and to try to get everyone to get in the same boat and tighten their belt. What Mr. Ford and Ms. Sawyer seem to want to do so far right here is just to target one particular division, a division of the administration, without the kind of shared sacrifice that really I think is called for in this community emergency. I think that if we just target one elected official, one particular division, that I think that'll be demoralizing to that particular division, particularly at a time when the division is called on repeatedly to sanitize and clean and manage custodial services and secure buildings. So I think what we're left with is probably a couple of options. If we are inclined to go back to the original plan, Commissioner Milton said he supports the original plan, and I think that might put us over the top if there's some way procedurally to do that, or go to a new plan. So, I think that's where we stand. I would also say, if we've got to go forward with Commissioner Ford's idea here, we should try as best we can to spread this pain across as many divisions as possible, which was the original intent here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to go in the queue. First, Commissioner Morrison, and then Commissioner Sawyer.
Thank you. I've already spoken.
They're going to bring 14 back up.
Okay. Commissioner, if everybody would please mute their microphones.
Thank you. I've already spoken.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Commissioner Sawyer. Commissioner Sawyer.
Chairman.
Yes,
I've
ma'am.
got a statement and a motion, okay? So I'm gonna try to do this in my allotted time. I just lost a hair bead too. Friends, here's my point of view with this. This came out of a sincere place in my heart, because as a county, I feel we are about 6 weeks behind the 8 ball on where we need to be in our response. We've not seen any real dollars put behind the COVID-19 response. Dr. Haushalter has told us that we have not even reached the peak yet. The Surgeon General has told us that this week and the coming weeks are going to be the hardest weeks for our country. We have not tested people in our most vulnerable parts of town, our low-income people, our Black and our brown people, our homeless people, our sex workers. So we don't even know the impact that we're having, that this has on our community. Our medical personnel and our first responders don't have the PPEs that they need. And people across the county are saying, where's the leadership? Where's the support? I make Canva graphics every day myself and put them on Facebook to try to keep our folks, our county in the know. And I know a lot of you are doing your own lift as well. Where's the coordinated response and what's it going to cost? I tried to be on the Joint Task Force and was told that I couldn't be on that because it would be a violation of sunshine laws when there's all kind of elected officials in there. It's too many politics when we don't have enough reducing the spread and people dying every day. And so that's my soapbox about it. But I also just don't want to fight about it. So having heard Director Jones share that she'd rather wait for the administration to do whatever they're going to do, I'm going to motion to withdraw this motion. And y'all figure it out.
It never got a second. So it was moved. Well, first it was the amendment. Okay? So there was an amendment made by Ford, did not get a second. So are you still moving to withdraw this item altogether?
Yes, I'm moving to withdraw this item.
Okay, well, first, Commissioner Ford, are you moving to withdraw your motion to amend?
I wasn't ready for Commissioner Sawyer to do that, but Commissioner Sawyer, let me just say this. You've worked more than most I've seen regarding this pandemic. And allow me some latitude, Chairman, because I will go with
Commissioners, we need to, Commissioners, let's stick to the timeline. Please, Commissioners, let's go.
But this needs to be said. This needs to be said. You've worked very hard on this, Commissioner Sawyer, and I appreciate it. We've been trying to find a resolve. You get people that contact you over and over. It's frustrating that we got some politics going on around here and a little bit of hypocrisy. And I'm talking about from the administration all the way down. I'm going to withdraw this item, but I'm going to start calling people out when it's easy for you to say no, but you're not putting any action in. I've defended too many people too many times. That time is over when it affects my district. So if I have to point people out from the mayor all the way down, I will. I agree with the withdrawal.
Okay, so the amendment is withdrawn, and then Commissioner Sawyer, you have withdrawn the item altogether. You want to withdraw the item as a sponsor?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Item number 15 is withdrawn. Item number 16.
Can we just get a second on the withdrawal? And
You don't have to do a second for a withdrawal if it's theirs, right?
I second the withdrawal so we can move on, Chairman.
Without objection.
Very
Okay,
good.
thank you.
Item number 16. Thank y'all very much.
Just 1 second. Item 16 is a resolution approving the election of notaries public for appointment and or reappointment for Shelby County, Tennessee, sponsored by Commissioner Mark Billingsley. This item was sent down without recommendation in April 1st, 2020.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rankin. I need a mover and seconder.
So moved, Lowry.
Second, Bradford.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on item number 16? Again, it was sent down without recommendation.
Chairman, this is Megan.
Go right ahead.
I believe that this item did not have a report from the county attorney's office when presented at committees. I can report now that no family members of the commission appeared on the list, and the item is approved as a form and legality.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much, County Attorney. Let's prepare the screens for voting for item number 16.
Commissioner Turner,
Aye.
Morrison,
Aye.
Sawyer,
Aye.
Whaley,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Milton, Brooks, Bradford,
Aye.
Ford.
This is item 16.
Yes.
Aye.
Mills,
Aye.
Lowry,
Aye.
Hannah,
Aye.
Chairman Billingsley.
Aye.
We have aye votes from Commissioners Turner, Morrison, Sawyer, Whaley, Wright, Bradford, Ford, Mills, Lowry, Jones, and Chairman Billingsley. We have 11 aye votes.
My apologies. Please add me as a yes as well, Mr. Chair.
Would you please re-report the tally, please?
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry about that.
Correction, we have aye votes from Commissioners Turner, Morrison, Sawyer, Whaley, Wright, Milton, Bradford, Ford, Mills, Lowry, Jones, and Chairman Billingsley. We have 12 aye votes.
That item passes. Item number 17.
Item 17 comes from the General Government Committee, which is chaired by Chairman Billingsley. Item 17 is a resolution to approve a one-time non-recurring grant contract with the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Memphis at Craigmont High School in an amount not to exceed $109,995. This grant aligns with the Shelby County Board of Commissioners' strategic priorities and directly serves the citizens of Shelby County. This item requires a transfer from the FY 2020 County Commissioners contingency budget in an amount not to exceed $109,995. Sponsored by Commissioner Willie Brooks, this item was sent down without recommendation in April 1, 2020 commission meeting.
Do we have a mover and seconder?
Moved by Bradford.
Moved by Bradford. We have a second?
I second the item, Turner.
Second by Turner. It's been moved and seconded. I've received information from Commissioner Brooks that he would like item number 17 withdrawn. Can we do that without objection? Item is withdrawn. I'm sorry, Commissioner Ford, did you want to speak on this item, or is that from the previous time? Commissioner Ford?
No, I don't want to speak on this particular item.
Thank you, Commissioner Ford. This item has been properly withdrawn by Commissioner Brooks without objection. Item number 18, Commissioners.
Item 18 comes from the Legislative Affairs Committee, which is chaired by Commissioner Mills. Item 18 is a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Shelby County, Tennessee to adopt voter-marked paper ballot machines and requesting the Tennessee General Assembly support legislation for paper ballot on demand voter options. Sponsored by Commissioner Tammy Sawyer, this item was sent down without recommendation in April 1, 2020 committee meeting.
Very good. Do we have a mover and seconder?
Move Sawyer.
Moved by Sawyer,
Seconded Morrison.
seconded by Commissioner Morrison. I understand, and again, Commissioner Mills, can you give us a report on this item, please?
Yes, the committee met and this item comes to us without a recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. I understand, at least I've been informed that there's a substitute. Is that correct, staff?
Correct.
Ms. Foltz? Okay. Do the commissioners have the substitute?
Yes.
So the commissioners have the substitute and we will be uploading it now for the public.
Very good. Could the sponsor, I assume, Commissioner Sawyer, the substitute comes from you?
It's a
Can
friendly.
I read it into the record?
Van
Yeah,
Turner.
please. That'd be wonderful.
Okay. Let me see if it's different than. The substituted caption for item 18 reads, resolution, item 18, substitute caption is a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Shelby County, Tennessee to one, request of Governor Bill Lee an executive order suspending certain provisions of Tennessee Code Annotated Section 2-6-201 to the extent necessary to authorize absentee voting by demand as is necessary to respond to and prevent the spread of COVID-19 during the 2020 election cycle, and two, adopt voter-marked paper ballot machines. This item is sponsored by Commissioner Tammy Sawyer, Commissioner Michael Whaley, and Commissioner Van D. Turner Jr.
Ms. Rankin, thank you so much. Would one of the sponsors like to explain the substitute?
Hey, Mr. Chair, this is Turner,
Yes,
if I can
yes.
speak.
And let's move the substitute in properly.
Yeah, thank you, Ms.
Accepted.
Rankin.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Ms. Rankin. I need someone to move it and second it, please.
I move it.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. That was moved by Turner, seconded by Commissioner Milton. Okay, now to Commissioner Turner.
Chairman, as y'all know, quite naturally, this has been a challenge trying to get this substituted and in front of everyone so everyone can digest it. Now that it's on the floor, and I would want to refer this back to committee. And I have a number of reasons, but primarily I think Administrator Linda Phillips indicated that there was still an issue going on with the Election Commission. I think at the last meeting, not much action was done. She indicated that something needed to be done by Tuesday. I'm under the assumption that they are trying to do something by tomorrow, and they would, being the Election Commission, need to speak to this issue. Part of what I had in the substitute appreciates the fact that we are in a COVID-19 pandemic, and if with social distancing and with having to touch the equipment like we have to do to go vote, I didn't know if it was even plausible to use the current Diebold equipment that we have if we're still undergoing a COVID-19 pandemic. They're saying the height will come this month and then it will decline, but early voting begins in July, I believe. And so given the fact that we still may be in a pandemic crisis in July, I'm not sure that the current Diebold machines are something is something that we should be using to vote on. So what I'm asking for, Mr. Chair, is to refer this back to committee, allow Linda Phillips to see what they're going to do. She said herself the deadline was tomorrow. And then if she doesn't act, then I think we have to act. But given the COVID-19 crisis, I just don't see how we continue to use the machines, and I think they need to have some type of protocol for social distancing. So that's just my motion, Mr. Chair, to send this back to committee to allow Administrator Phillips and the Election Commission to take action this week based on what they said they would do last week.
Thank you, Commissioner Turner. So you would like to refer this to the next committee meeting?
Yes, sir. I would like to refer the substitute because this is the first time we've seen.
Yes. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yes.
And the substitute has COVID-19 language in it, which talks to the COVID-19 pandemic and how we are to vote going forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Turner. Is there a second?
I'll second. Ask a quick question.
Seconded by Commissioner Ford. And Commissioner Ford, your question, please.
Did we get this substitute resolution so I can look at it?
Yeah, it's in your email.
When was it?
Just a few minutes ago, Commissioner Ford.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I don't want to be in a situation where there's a substitute at the last second and people want to say that I haven't received it and we need time. Like I said, I'm start pointing out things. Thank you.
Yeah.
And again, this is going to be moved to the next committee meeting. So, So we have a motion and a second. Commissioners, you should have received that in your email box, so please read that. Can we send this to committee without objection? Ms. Rankin, do you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I didn't hear you state it. Didn't mean you didn't say it. I didn't hear you say
ma'am.
that the item was substituted without objection.
The item was substituted without objection.
Okay, and so now we have, what is the next motion? I lost my
This said-
connection.
Yes, ma'am. We're going to refer it to committee, and there doesn't seem to be an objection to referring this to the next committee meeting.
Okay, who made that motion?
It was Commissioner Turner, seconded by Commissioner Ford.
And no objection?
No objection.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, so seeing no objection, then we'll send this to the next committee meeting. Thank you, Commissioner Turner. And also really good points about voting in the midst of a pandemic when touching things can sometimes spread infection. So something we're really going to have to think about. Thank you so much, Commissioner Turner. I'm sorry, Commissioners, item number 19.
Item 19 comes from the Community Enhancement Grants Committee, which is chaired by Commissioner Milton. Item 19 is a resolution awarding county funds from the FY 2020 operating budget in the amount of $3,500 to Red Robins Academy of Learning, a charitable organization. Sponsored by Commissioner Eddie S. Jones Jr., this item was amended in April 1, 2020 committee meeting.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rankin. I need someone to move this, please.
So moved by Bradford.
Second.
Moved by Bradford. Seconded by Commissioner Jones. Are there any questions about item number 19?
Mr. Chair, that item came before my committee and was sent down with favorable recommendation.
Commissioner Milton, thank you so much.
You're more
I
than welcome.
appreciate that. Appreciate that. Commissioners, any discussion on this item? Commissioner Jones, this is your item. Anything?
No, they just had to make a correction on the amount, and that is what was done in committee, and so I'm good with it.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Well, Commissioners, let's prepare to vote on item number 19.
Commissioner Turner,
Aye.
Morrison,
Aye.
Sawyer,
Aye.
Whaley,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Milton,
Yes.
Aye.
Send it to me again.
Brooks, Bradford,
Yes.
Ford, Mills,
Aye.
Lowry,
It's
Jones,
Aye.
Chairman Billingsley.
aye for Billingsley.
Okay. We have aye votes from Commissioners Turner, Morrison, Sawyer, Whaley, Wright, Milton, Bradford, Mills, Jones, and Chairman Billingsley. We have 10 aye votes.
Those items pass. That item passes, item number 19. Are there any add-ons today? Did Commissioner Jones, did we address an add-on from you?
Nah, I'm told that you guys have it. It was a resolution amending item number 35 as adopted on March 23rd, 2020 to provide paid administrative leave to employees who are subject to an involuntary quarantine. So I don't know yet.
We got it, Commissioner. We got it. We got it, Vice Chairman. Thank you. Ms. Rankin, would you please read it for us?
Item 19A is a add-on item. Item 19A is a resolution amending item number 35 as adopted on March 23rd, 2020 to provide leave to employees who are subject to an involuntary quarantine, sponsored by Commissioner Eddie S. Jones Jr.
I don't trust him. That's not what it is. No, he's a piss poor communicator.
Commissioner Sawyer, Commissioner Sawyer, you might want to turn your microphone off.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Okay, so commissioners, Ms. Rankin has read in an add-on. Can we accept the add-on without objection? Can we add that on? No objection, commissioners? Okay, hearing no objection, we add on Commissioner Jones's amendment. Commissioner Jones, do you want to explain it to us, or does?
We still need a mover in a second, please.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Moved by Commissioner Jones.
Mhm.
And who seconded it? I need a second, please.
Second by Bradford.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Commissioner Bradford. It's been properly moved and seconded. Commissioner Jones, would you like to give us a brief of this add-on?
Yeah, I would. And if Attorney Ingram can come in behind me. But basically, all we did was added some additional language to what we already approved. And one of it deals with the leave policy. And that would be item number 3, that if an employee, manager / appointing authority requires an involuntary quarantine and an AWS, which is an alternate work schedule, that's what AWS means, is not a viable option for the employee. Persons employed as deputy sheriff / jailers, correction officers, paramedics, firefighters, etc., then such employee shall be placed on paid administrative leave during the involuntary quarantine period. And so we can get Attorney Ingram on the line and she can tell you a little more, but that's what was added to what we'd already approved that was not in the previous one.
Okay, thank you so much. CAO Gilliam, does the administration or HR have any comments on this item?
The administration doesn't have a position. Obviously, we're going to defer and respect the will of the county commission on this item.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Commissioner Jones, is there any fiscal note to this item?
There should be none to that.
I started to say it's probably already covered.
You would either be paying them, I mean, if they've been quarantined, and I'm being told today that I think the DA is enacting those that are not quarantined. So if you're quarantined, that's where you need to be so that you don't continue to spread.
Okay, very good. Very good. Thank you so much, commissioners. Are we ready to vote? Let me see if there's anybody in the queue. Commissioner Morrison. I'm so sorry. Let's go. Commissioner Morrison, you have the floor, and then I'm going to go to Commissioner Lowry.
Thank you, Chairman. My question would be, is this an urgent matter? Could we refer it to committee so that we have some time to figure out if there's any fiscal note to it and have some time to study it a bit?
Commissioner Jones, would you have any opposition to letting us have a little more time to review it?
I don't think it's any different than what the federal government has put out, so it doesn't change that. It doesn't, the only thing it does, if this occurs with our frontline people who are out there, that if they are committed to self-quarantine, then it sort of falls in line with what the feds have put out as well. So it's no big deal, but y'all want to push it back to see if it has any fiscal note attached to it. I don't think so. It's no more than what we are already doing anyway.
This is Stephen Massey. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Mr. Massey, go right ahead.
Yes, so there's several provisions under the new FFCRA provision that is also covered. So except for, there is an exclusion for public safety, secure, health, fire, they're excluded. However, what we have been doing as a practice for anyone that has a mandatory quarantine, we have been paying them for that quarantine period. So that is a practice that's currently in place. And that leave is expanded with the FFCRA law that just went into effect April 1st.
To the HR director, Mr. Massey, what if the person could work from home? Does that allow us to
Absolutely.
ask them to work?
So, yes, sir. So absolutely. So if someone can telecommute, then they will basically self-quarantine and still continue to work during that 14-day quarantine period.
Okay. Okay, very good. Commissioner Lowry, would you like to speak to this item?
No, I apologize. No, I do not want to speak to this item.
No problem.
I'll get back. I want to speak after this item. So after this item.
Okay. Thank you, my friend. Anything else? Commissioner Morrison, I know you've asked for it to be at a later date, but you didn't put that in the form of a motion. Do you have anything else to say, or?
I'll probably pass since I'm not confident that I understand exactly fully what's happening here. But other than that, if everyone else is comfortable, have at it.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, if everybody could mute their microphones, I'd be grateful. Seeing no one else wishing to speak on this item, let's prepare the screens for voting for the add-on item. What number is this, Ms. Rankin, or to the staff? Item 20?
19A. 19A.
Thank you, Rankin. 19A.
Sure.
Commissioners, let's prepare the screens for voting for this item.
Commissioner Turner,
Aye. Aye.
Morrison,
Pass.
Sawyer,
Aye.
Whaley,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Milton,
Aye.
Brooks, Bradford,
Yes.
Ford,
I don't know what we're voting on, so go ahead. I had to leave out for a second.
You want to pass?
Yeah, I don't know what the item is, so I'm abstaining.
Okay.
Mills,
Aye.
Lowry,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Chairman Billingsley.
I'm going to abstain just because I would like to read more about it.
We have aye votes from Commissioners Turner, Sawyer, Whaley, Wright, Milton, Bradford, Mills, Lowry, and Jones. Commissioners Morrison, Ford, and Billingsley have abstained. We have 9 ayes and 3 abstain.
Commissioners, that item passes. Commissioners, do we have any more business to come before the body? I think Commissioner Lowry, you had asked that you wanted to speak for a second. Commissioner Lowry.
Sorry about that. Was having an issue with the mute button. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you. Commissioner Lowry?
Yes. So,
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, I'm just a little concerned that, we're at the end of our meeting here and we still have not been able to allocate or do anything for COVID. I know that Sawyer withdrew her item, so it's no longer on the table. I'm trying to guess without, unfortunately, not being around each other, can't speak to the parliamentarian. I'm trying to figure out how way to at least bring that item back up to change the funding source, or to possibly do an add-on now to allocate funds from our fund balance for COVID funds.
Commissioner Lowry, Commissioner Lowry, are you speaking to item 14? Are you speaking to item,
That failed, that we're talking about possibly reconsidering?
So I guess I'm asking you for some direction, because can I speak to an item that was withdrawn? So I mean, it was neither voted up or down. So
Okay. What item number?
15.
15.
Okay, 15.
Oh, 15. Okay.
So it was withdrawn. So it's, I mean, we can move to reconsider the withdrawal, but not, I don't know if that's proper, because let me look and see, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Okay, let's see. You can sponsor it as an add-on because it's withdrawn, so it doesn't exist now. So if you want to bring the item as an add-on, you can do that.
With changing the funding source,
Sure.
the fund balance.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to do.
Okay, so let's see. Can, does the chairman, would you accept this add-on?
I'm sorry, I'm having communication problems. What is the funding source?
Whether it's deemed time sensitive or it's really at your discretion.
Yes. Again, this is for Commissioner Lowry. You're trying to get support for coronavirus equipment for the health department and the Office of Emergency Management. Is that your intent?
Yes.
Okay, I have no objection to that.
Okay, so we're gonna bring this on as item 19B. Rosalind?
But just for clarification, do we have a funding source?
Or you should ask me a question.
Commissioner Lowry seeks to, the substance of item 15, the item was withdrawn, but Commissioner Lowry seeks to add on an item to basically substantively the same. We're just going to change the funding source. So I just wanted to find out from you, this would be add on item 19B?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let me read the caption. Okay. Item 19A is an add-on item. Item 19A is a resolution to amend the FY 2020 general operating budget and position control budget in order to reallocate $2 million from blank to the Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency, EMA, for purposes of purchasing emergency materials needed to support efforts to reduce the spread of COVID-19 in Shelby County. This item requires the appropriation of up to $2 million from the EMA's budget. Sponsored by Chairman Pro Tempore, sponsored by Commissioner Lowry. This item is an add-on.
Do we have a mover and a seconder? I'm not hearing a motion or a second.
Commissioner Lowry, you can move it.
I second.
I second. I'm sorry. I thought I moved it.
I second, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Okay,
Turner
Lowry moved it. Turner seconded it. Okay, very good. It's
Okay.
now on the floor for discussion.
And don't forget, I have a blank in there because we took out from the Division of Public Works, so.
From our fund balance.
Commissioner Lowry, Okay, so your substitution for Public Works is from the fund balance.
Yes.
Okay. Can I please ask our CFO and for Mr. Gilliam and even the mayor to give us any consultation on this item? Commissioner Crosby,
As
we
I,
need to,
hello.
go ahead.
You know, I have made several presentations on the fund balance. In November of this year, the fund balance got down to $368,000. Currently, in February, it is higher at the end of February and at the end of March because our property taxes did just come in. But this year, it was 368,000 in November. And with the projected deficit prior to COVID of spending 7.9 million, that will be in the red by 7.3 million next year if we do not reduce our expenditures or raise our revenues.
So, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, CFO, but basically, we don't have a fund balance at this point. I mean, that is so negligible. I don't have those kind of reserves at my home, but there's lots of people that do. I mean, our fund balance is basically, I mean, it's not substantial. I don't know how to say it in your terms, but it basically doesn't exist.
Correct.
Mr. Mayor, I see you in the queue. Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think I appreciate Commissioner Lowry because I think what he's trying to do is make sure we don't leave today without some sort of COVID response. And you know, I think obviously I prefer our plan. And I just want to say that we are going to have to make some tough choices at some point here real soon. We know, as Director Crosby may have mentioned, that the jobless claims are at historic levels in our state and rising fast. We know that Nashville today and in recent days has suggested that their budget of $2 billion, Metro Nashville, that their budget of $2 billion is at least $300 million off because of COVID. At least $300 million off because of COVID. And we know the mayor of Nashville has promised that he will have to raise taxes significantly in Nashville as a result of this changed environment. We know that although Shelby County Schools doesn't depend on sales tax, we know that although Shelby County government doesn't depend on the sales tax dramatically, Shelby County Schools does depend on the sales tax. They budgeted about $137 million in their current budget for sales tax revenue. And there is a good chance that they will not see that $137 million in sales tax revenue. So there's some real choppy waters ahead for us in this current environment. I think we've talked about the collections and that some of our collection operations are ground to a halt. Our courtrooms are ground to a halt. The clerk's office is ground to a halt. And so that makes this really, really challenging. So I just want to flag before this meeting is done that I'm hopeful that we'll be able to really confront these really, really tough decisions that we will have to make here soon. I think, you know, Commissioner Lowry's effort to do something with respect to COVID before we leave is admirable. I wish we had a better funding source. And maybe one option is to at least make a pledge that if we're going to fund $2 billion out of fund balance, that we'll at least come back and make some cuts in the future here, because it's going to take cuts and more to get through the environment that we're in unless something changes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me go in the queue.
Chairman?
Yes.
Let me reread the caption because I think just to have it properly before us.
Yes, ma'am. Please, go right ahead.
Okay. Item 19A 19B is an add-on item, just reading it to clarify because it was not completely read properly the first time. Item 19B is a resolution to amend the FY 2020 general operating budget and position control budget in order to reallocate $2 million from fund balance to the Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency, EMA, for purposes of purchasing emergency materials needed to support efforts to reduce the spread of COVID-19 in Shelby County. This item requires the appropriation of up to $2 million to the EMA's budget, sponsored by Commissioner Lowry.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much, Ms. Rankin. I'm going to go in the queue. Commissioner Turner, do you want to speak to this item, or do you want me to come back to you in a few minutes?
Yes, sir. I wanted to reconsider, but I'm supportive of this item. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Ford, do you want to speak to this item?
Yeah.
Go right ahead, Commissioner Ford.
I only got 2 questions, and I'm concerned on asking them because I keep hearing double talk and other stuff from administrators, but this is for the CFO. How much do we have in fund balance right now that is unreserved, and what is in the overall fund balance? I don't want anything else from it.
I
$2.
don't have the unreserved amount for you right now, but at the end of February, the general fund balance was 167 million. That's the peak of the year.
But you don't have the unreserved.
No, I do not have the reserved and unreserved detail. And that is 14.4 million less than it was in 2 years ago.
That's not the answer that I wanted, but I'm not surprised at the answer either. So I'm just going to move to the next person in the queue. This item, we need to do something. We need to stop playing games. We're doing a whole lot of talking and a lot of no action right now. If this was supposed to be a possible option, I wish we would have brought it up when Commissioner Sawyer and I brought it up. I really would like to have that number, but unfortunately the CFO does not have it. I know we'll be talking about that during budget season. So I just like to stop seeing the games being played, but hey, it is what it is. I yield.
Thank you, Commissioner Ford. Vice Chairman Jones, you have the floor.
Commissioner Ford pretty much asked the questions that I was going to ask, because I wanted to know what was in the restricted and unrestricted. So.
Okay. And CFO is giving you the restricted, and we'll ask her to send us the unrestricted.
I was giving the total.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's right. I'm sorry, CFO. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're back to the main motion. I'm going to go to the screens. Hold on one moment. Commissioner Morrison, do you want to speak to this item?
Well, I had written a question. When this item was brought up previously and then withdrawn, did we not hear from the EMA that they are not requesting these funds?
I don't know if the Director Jones is still on the line. Director Jones, are you still with us? Mr. Gilliam, you want to answer that question? Mr. Gilliam, you've got the floor, my friend.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Based on the conversation that we've had within the administration, if the $2 million is allocated, we have laid out where we want the dollars to be spent. Obviously, Director Jones has indicated that she needs dollars for overtime as well as PPE. We've indicated that Director Young needs dollars for positions as well as to fund many of the needs that are across this community. And there is a need to compensate some of the health department individuals for all of the overtime that they're working. And so if the funding is going to be pulled from fund balance, obviously we would like to have those items funded with the $2 million.
CAO, I think Ms. Commissioner Morrison's question was fairly direct. Let me just see if you can answer that for us. If not, I understand. Her question was, did Director Jones ask for these dollars? Regarding the $2 million for mask and other things that you've discussed, is the administration or emergency management asking for the $2 million at this time?
Administration is in need of the $2 million for the reasons that I've stated, not $2 million solely for EMA.
Okay. Okay.
In that case, Chairman, I would move that this be deferred, or it was withdrawn, and it be deferred or referred to committee so that there can be some clarity on the need. Because I'm hearing two different things here.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Morrison. Mr. Gilliam, you want to say anything else on that?
Yes, I have an itemized list of those needs if you would like for me to go over them again. I think Mayor Harris spelled out those needs a little bit earlier. There's 800. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I understand the needs. I guess also as a body, we would be more in a position to make these allocations out of a dwindling fund balance if we were able to make the adjustments to the budget in item number 14.
Is that a question to Mr. Gilliam, or who's Mr. Gilliam? Go ahead.
Mr. Morrison, do you want me to go over this list again?
That's not necessary for me, for that you go back over the list. It's just difficult to vote on the spend when we haven't quantified or satisfied the need for the savings. So that's where I am and why I see it needing to have some time. Thank you. You don't need to read that again to me.
Okay, thank you.
CAO, let me just ask you from a practical matter. I know that the Joint Task Force is working very hard around the clock, and I do, because of the daily meetings, I know that we're trying to secure more PPE. We're trying to get legitimate orders on masks because, unfortunately, there are a lot of bogus vendors out there trying to fool even government. As it relates to your ability to get masks and PPE, is there anything that this commission is holding up in your ability to do that? Or are you basically ordering whatever you can with the hope that we're going to be reimbursed by the state and the feds, regardless of what happens today? I'm just asking the question. I'm not trying to sway you one way or the other. I just want to know the facts.
Yes, that's exactly the case. I will mention that the city of Memphis has a large PPE order that was due in today. Once that order arrives, they're going to invoice us for half of that cost. And that would be for the various types of masks that we would be distributing to first responders as well as hospital workers. I think the order is somewhere in the ballpark of around 1.2 million masks, and we're responsible for half of that order.
Mr. Gilliam, I think this goes without saying, but because we have commissioners from all over this county, I assume that even though the city of Memphis and the county's jointly buying masks, I assume that we're coordinating, and I do know the respective mayors are on the call every morning, but I also just want to understand if Germantown, Bartlett, Arlington, Millington, et cetera, needs masks, are they getting the mask from the same buy, or are they coordinating separately?
In actuality, our portion of the order will go to make sure that all of the municipalities and those healthcare organizations within Shelby County receive their requested needs.
So again, I'm not trying to work against my kind friend, Commissioner Lowry, but regardless, basically of the vote up or down on this item, you're going to order the mask, you're going to order the PPE, and at the end of the day, we'll have to settle out if we get reimbursed by the state and the feds, or you'll have to come to us for funding, correct?
That's correct. Whether we receive reimbursement in the long run, I think the PPE need to be ordered as soon as we can identify a vendor that can get us the items that we need.
Okay. Well, again, I appreciate the questions you're asking. Excuse me, I appreciate your responses. I'm going to go back to the sponsor, Commissioner Lowry. We've had a number of questions and answers, Commissioner Lowry, on your item. So I'm putting it back to you, my friend.
We'll get the money back from at least 75% of it back being reimbursable.
Well, I don't think there's a guarantee. We can't, I don't want to talk about it right this second, but I do, before we adjourn, commissioners, I've been getting emails even during this meeting that there's been some federal legislation to get us support and some funding, but the way it is worded, it could potentially cut out Shelby County. And I do want to talk to the mayor and to Mr. Gilliam and Legislative Chair Mills before we adjourn today to be sure that we have a unified front, to be sure we communicate with Congressman Cohen, Kustoff, Senator Blackburn, and Alexander that we have real needs here in Shelby County, but I understand there's some legislative issues with potentially what they're proposing. So, Mr. Gilliam, to answer Commissioner Lowry's point, how much certainty do we have that we're going to be reimbursed for what we buy, basically?
I think there's a pretty good chance with the conversations that Chief Jones has had with TEMA that we're going to be reimbursed 75% of our costs.
Okay. Well, Commissioner Lowry, I think he answered your question. What do you think?
That's where I am with,
Here's you can, and also I'll let you, Mulligan, and also Director Jones just came online, but I'll go to you, Commissioner Milton.
Mr. Gillum, I'm in a disagreement with you. By my understanding, the CARES Act, the funding goes directly toward where the majority of that expenditure goes, and that's very likely going to be the city of Memphis. And I don't think the county will be getting the majority of these dollars. I don't see us getting our 75% out of this. Are you certain of this? Because by my understanding, the CARES Act, it goes toward where most of this is being expended, which would be the city of Memphis. So the city of Memphis would be getting their funding back up to 75%, but I don't see the county getting that 75%. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And also, I'd like to point out that I concur with what Commissioner Morrison was saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Milton. Let me go to Director Brenda Jones. Director Jones, do you have a comment, Director Jones?
Yes, Chairman, I do. The CARES Act and the Federal Declaration are two different pots of federal funding. And I agree with you on the CARES Act. As it is written now, the county would not receive the funding. It would go to the municipality that has 500,000 or more citizens, which would be the city of Memphis. Now, the Federal Declaration, that's coming on a totally different pool of money, and personal protection equipment is available and is reimbursable. 75-25. That's a totally different pool of money from the CARES Act.
So you, Director Jones, regarding the latter, on the front end, you don't sound very confident, but on the latter, you do feel confident about funding?
I am 100% sure that personal protection equipment is reimbursable under the Federal Declaration, a 75-25 split.
Okay. Thank you, Director Jones, and I really appreciate you coming back with us. I'm going to go to the queue here. I assume Vice Chairman Jones, I see you on the screen. Do you have a question or a comment? Can't hear you, Commissioner Jones. We can't hear you.
Yes, now I'm unmuted.
There,
And I,
there
and
you
I
go, my
think,
friend.
yes, and to Director Jones's point, and I read that act as well as it related to the reimbursement of those funds. Uh, I think the county would have to apply through the U.S. Department of Treasury for to be reimbursed for that. So on one hand, one deals with the city and the other one deals with the county, any government, public sector, 500,000 or more. So they're right on point with that. But there's also another pot of money that's coming from the state that was approved before this got approved. So there's a lot of funding for COVID that's out there that's on the table that I think we'll have an opportunity to share in as well. That's what I
Okay.
wanted to add, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Again, I'm not trying to drag this meeting until it turns dark outside, but we'll do whatever we need to, Commissioners. So I'm going to go back to the sponsor, Commissioner Lowry. You've got a motion on the floor. Is there any other questions or anything else, Commissioner Lowry?
No, I mean, what I hear from the vice chairman and our budget chair saying that we have funds coming. Obviously, you know, my whole issue is that we weren't able to act today. But if we're going to feel confident, I want to put my confidence in the people who are tasked to do the work. And if the people who are tasked to do the work are saying that funds are coming, then I can be supportive of that. So, but you know, I was looking at we were at a standstill today. But if what I hear from you, Commissioner Jones, saying that funds are coming, and I've heard that from other sources, and the people who are tasked to do the work are confident in that, then I can confidently withdraw that if that's what you're saying.
Are you withdrawing, Commissioner Lowry?
Commissioner Jones, is that what you're saying?
No, but to that end, on the backside, we'd be reimbursed, and then those funds would be available to be paid back to us because we do have an opportunity. There are two sources: the federal government, county can apply through the U.S. Department of Treasury, and the state, because they had passed something forward to support its counties for COVID-19. And so the mayor already suggested that as long as we could put it back in, we'd be okay on the backside. And because that funding will be made available for us, we just have to apply for it. And I think the state can disperse us some for our county.
Commissioner Sawyer, do you have a comment? Go right ahead, Commissioner Sawyer.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. My apologies for my earlier gaffe. But
I hope you weren't talking about me.
I was talking about you. I was definitely talking about you.
Oh, I hope not.
I'm just kidding. It was Mikhail.
I'll get my feelings hurt. All right, go right ahead.
No, sir. Yeah, I share the same concern as Commissioner Lowry about us in today, and I don't want us to, the sun is definitely setting, be here all night, but I just am struggling with hanging up this call and not having put any funding towards this effort as a body. And it sounds like there may be money coming and we could possibly get reimbursed, but we don't know when or where that will happen. And if that's the case, why was there ever a resolution for money? So I guess that's my question. Like, is there money coming that we never, like the original resolution from the administration that we bifurcated had asked for PPE spending, right? So were they aware that money was coming? I'm just really confused right now.
Okay, Commissioner Sawyer. Okay, Mr. Gill, you want to weigh in, and then I'm going to go to Commissioner Lowry to either withdraw this or vote on this. So
Yeah, I mean, I
Commissioner
would simply
Gilliam.
like
Go right ahead, Mr. Gilliam.
Yeah, I just simply would like to say that we're placing orders. I mean, these orders have to be paid for on the front end. I mean, it could be months down the road, depending on how long this pandemic lasts before we reimburse. So I don't think that Director Jones has funding in her budget to expense on this $848,000 order at this particular point. And that was one of the reasons why the administration put forth the resolution that we put forth to fund the revenue shortfall as well as fund this PPE order and some other items.
Thank you, Mr. Gilliam. I'm going to go to the sponsor, Commissioner Lowry. What's your direction here?
Let's vote. Let the will of the body speak.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. It's been properly seconded. Please prepare the screens for voting.
Commissioner Turner?
Aye.
Morrison?
Hold on before you call anymore. Commissioner Ford, did you have something? I can't hear you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go right ahead. Go ahead.
All right, I'll be real quick.
I missed your cue there, I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. In my hand, I have a summary sheet with a resolution that the city council did regarding COVID-19. And they did not have the issues that we're having today. They took it out of reserves, which I'm reserved in doing. That's why I was trying to find another source. But the city council passed this. It was done. It wasn't about what we're going to do and what we may do. It was about what we have done. I have reservations on using reserves, but because I have people in my district that are suffering, I will support this particular item. And Commissioner Lowry, I appreciate you trying to bring it back up. I think you did it in a genuine way. I don't think it was one of those to where you wanted to just take it, but you wanted to not leave here without something being done. Because it would have looked real bad for this commission in my eyes. Y'all can disagree. If we would have left the table, the virtual table, without doing anything. And this city council did it without any problems, $2 million in reserves. They weren't going through the stuff that we're going through right now. So let's either do this or not do this. So I can go back to 38109 and 38116 and say exactly what is transpired. What I've been doing for the last
Commissioner
13
Ford.
years.
Thank you, Commissioner Ford. Now, Commissioner Ford, Mayor Harris is in the queue. Mayor Harris, go right ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to flag that our current estimate for our PPE is $848,245. So, again, we'll defer to the will of the commission if you want to set up an account to the tune of $2 million for PPE. But our current estimate, which may escalate over time, but our current estimate is $848,245 for PPE. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But Commissioners, just because I haven't spoken on this item, I'm just going to say that I am not going to vote for this item. I think the argument has been made that they're going to order the equipment regardless. We do not have to cut a check in the next 2 weeks. And so I don't think there's been a good enough argument to say that this has to happen today. I think the public's going to look at all the votes today, not just this one. So I'm going to respectfully vote no on this, and I just wanted to explain my vote. So let's continue now, Commissioners, with the rest of the voting.
Commissioner Turner?
Excuse me.
Me and as an aye.
Morrison,
I think that Commissioner Lowry's trying to speak.
I'm sorry.
Chairman,
Commissioner Lowry.
thank you. I was going to go back in light of what the mayor just said here. I know we kind of started our voting beforehand, and I'm amenable to adjusting that figure if we can down to the figure he just mentioned here in the approximately 900,000. I can't remember the exact number he said. If that needs to be adjusted as well, if it makes it more palatable with people instead of 2 million.
Ms. Rankin, since we've begun the vote, there's only one vote on the screen, but by parliamentary procedures, is it possible to, at this point, to wash the vote and Commissioner Lowry to amend if he wants to, or since we have one vote that is in progress, do we need to proceed as is? I fault myself on this one for letting this get this far down the road. We can't hear you, Ms. Rankin. Go right ahead.
The vote
Ms.
is
Rankin.
complete. The vote is not complete. You have discretion over what's happening. So
Okay,
if you would like to entertain amendment at this time, you have that prerogative.
Let me ask the staff to please take down the voting screen, please. Please take down the voting screen. Thank you so much, staff, and I really appreciate everything y'all have done today and being so fluid with all of us. Commissioner Lowry, I'm going to send it to you.
Thank you, Chairman. So I just go back, I'll reiterate to changing the funding amount to the amount that is been allocated that's needed for the PPEs. The mayor can come back on and give us that figure, or if we can, if it's close to 900,000, decreasing to 900,000 from 2 million, that makes it more palatable for the body.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead. So okay, so do you just want to say $900,000? Just so we have something on the record?
Sounds good, 900,000.
Okay, 900,000. And I heard
We
a
get a
second from
second?
Commissioner.
Yep,
Jones.
Jones.
Yep, Jones. Is there any discussion on the amount or anything else on this item, commissioners?
Any objection?
Any objection, commissioners? Okay, no objection to the amount and proceeding. So commissioners, the amount has been changed to 900,000. Commissioner Wright, do you want to be heard?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Go right ahead. Go right
Just a quick, I apologize, but I'm a little bit lost now. Is the administration at this point in favor of this plan and understanding where, I just don't understand where these funds are going and which plan we're following. I'm just confused.
I'm going to let Mr. Gilliam speak, but Commissioner, the county has ordered almost $900,000 worth of PPE and mask. That's what we're ordering. And so Commissioner Lowry put a motion on the floor to fund $900,000 toward that expense. And Ms. Rankin, can you help me, or the sponsor, remind me where the funds are coming from? Are they just coming out of the general fund balance, or where are they coming
Fund balance to EMA, to the Emergency Management Homeland Security Agency, to their budget.
Okay. And was that also to the health department or just to EMA?
Only to EMA.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Rankin. So Commissioner Wright, you got half that question answered. Mr. Gilliam, and Mr. Mayor, are you supportive of this, or do you have a position on this item as amended? Mr. Gilliam or Mr. Mayor?
Okay. Mayor's chopping in.
Go right ahead, Mr. Mayor. Go right ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We prefer our plan. Our plan is for $2 million to go to a variety of places and help pay for the overtime pay for the health department and the overtime for the emergency preparedness. But, you know, we defer to the will of the commission. You know, again, if we're going to do this, if we're going to use fund balance, I believe at least a slightly better way to do it would be to pair it with a commitment to make cuts at least at some point here soon. We're going to have to really face these tough decisions. The environment is dark, to say the least.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you've been pretty clear on the administration's position. I appreciate the clarification. Commissioner Wright, did that answer your question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any other commissioners? I don't see any. We are going to go to a vote, commissioners, on this item as amended. Please prepare the screens for voting.
Commissioner Turner,
Aye.
Morrison,
No.
Sawyer,
Please come back to me.
White,
Aye.
Wright,
Abstain.
I'm sorry, some back noise. Did you call me? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, commissioners, I have no idea. I am going to have to abstain because I have no idea where to stand on this issue.
Brooks, Bradford,
Yes.
Ford,
Constituents deserve better. I pass, abstain.
Mills,
Abstain.
Byron,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Chairman Billingsley.
Ms. Rankin, is this a simple majority or does it require 7 to pass?
7.
I vote no.
Commissioner Sawyer,
I abstain.
we have aye votes from Commissioners Turner, Whaley, Bradford, Lowry, and Jones. Commissioners Morrison and Billingsley have voted no. Commissioners Sawyer, Wright, Milton, Ford, and Mills have abstained. We have 5 ayes, 2 noes, and 5 abstain.
Okay, commissioners, that item fails. Commissioners, do we have any other business before us tonight? Commissioner Turner, I think I had you in the queue earlier. I had you down on my notepad. Do you want to be heard from, my friend?
No, sir, I'm good for this evening. Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, any other business before this Shelby County Commission of Monday, April the 6th? Commissioners, any announcements before this body?
Commissioner, Mr. Mayor, God dang it, excuse me, I am lost here. Mr. Chair, 10 seconds.
Take your time. Go ahead, Commissioner Milton.
Just basically, I want to thank all the commissioners and the administration. I know, look, everybody's trying to do what's best here. I don't think there's anyone who's not trying to. If this was easy, everybody would be doing it. But let me just say that as frustrating as it might be, I would not want to be anyplace else. I respect every single one of you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Milton. Any other commissioners have announcements? Commissioners, I do have one announcement, and I do need, I'm sorry I have to share this with you, but just one moment. Just one moment. Commissioners, if you mute your microphones for a second. Commissioners, Florence Leffler passed away yesterday. She had fallen last week. She was 94 years old. She would have been 95 in September. You may have remember her husband, Judge Bill Leffler. Councilwoman Leffler leaves a daughter and son. She was a city councilwoman for the city of Memphis. She was the first female principal of a city of Memphis high school, Central High, from 1977 to 1981. And she certainly was a pioneer for her time in elected service, doing what she did. So please, please pray for the Florence Leffler's family tonight, as well as everyone else we mentioned at the beginning of this meeting. Again, Commissioners, thanks for all you're doing, and we'll continue to stay in touch. This meeting is adjourned. Commissioner Sori, do you have something?
No, sir, never mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend.